Chapter 151. On the day of the Gate of All Living Things incident, the elders and disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect didn't come down from the cloud wave boat. They traveled thousands of miles from the eastern border region to this place to slap the Lingjian school's face. At first they were complacent and full of confidence. As a result, they made a big fool of themselves in the welcoming ceremony, losing their footing and becoming a delinquent teenager. That night, they suffered a crushing defeat in a competition that should have been in their grasp. It could be said that it was so dark that they couldn't even see their own fingers in front of them. When the Gate of All Living Things was activated, the elders tried to reverse the unfavorable situation. However, not only did they not succeed, their morale became even lower. When Wang Lu performed his brilliant performance in the Gate of All Living Things, even the eldest brother of the 10,000 Arts sect, Zhan Zai, didn't have the confidence to face this weirdo, let alone the others. That night, the people of the 10,000 Arts sect spent the night on the cloud wave boat. Because they really didn't know what kind of face they should use to set foot on the land of the Spirit Sword Mountain, they could only sleep peacefully inside the cloud wave boat. However, the night was long, yet no one slept. The several elders talked all night long, while the 5 disciples sighed in their respective cabins outside their respective bedrooms. Their morale was extremely low. I still can't figure out how he survived the insect poison. Zhao Jiangyuan indignantly said, no matter how you think about it, isn't it cheating? Lu Qiankai weakly retorted, he used our Gate of All Living Things and Master and Martial Uncle were watching over him. Why don't you explain how he cheated? Zhao Jiangyuan was speechless, but his face still showed his indignation. After a while, he ingeniously put forward a hypothesis. That Wang Lu is so powerful, but is he really just a high-level qi cultivating stage disciple? Damn it, it's very likely that the Lingjian school found an elder to disguise himself. This time even Yi Feifei couldn't stand it anymore. Zhao Jiangyuan, are you out of your mind? How could you come up with such an absurd reason? But, at this time the eldest brother slowly opened his mouth. Well, that Wang Lu is indeed powerful, there's nothing to say. Zhao Jiangyuan tilted his head. Tisich, a high-ranked qi condensation kid who focuses on crooked ways, how fierce can he be? It's just that he's skilled in some strange and obscene techniques. After he said this, no one objected. Whether it was Zhan Zai, Yi Feifei, or Lu Qiankai, deep in their hearts, they all liked Zhao Jiangyuan's explanation. Indeed, no matter how brilliant Wang Lu was, it couldn't cover up the flaw of his insufficient cultivation base. Although for the disciples of 10,000 Arts sect who had always been known for their academic ability, using their cultivation base to oppress others was a disgrace in itself. However, at this time they couldn't care less about it. If they could blacken him, then blacken him. Senior brother, senior sister, I think we should think about this problem from a different perspective. Amidst the silence, Hai Yunfan suddenly broke the silence, attracting everyone's attention. As the youngest junior brother of the 10,000 Arts sect, Hai Yunfan didn't have an outstanding performance in cultivation. However, since he was selected by the sect elders to join the exchange team, he naturally had the ability to convince the other members of the team. I remember when I was in the Immortal sect, the elders often taught us to look at problems with an open mind. I think it's not just for academics, it's the same for people. As an enemy, Wang Lu is, of course, very annoying, but why do we have to regard him as an enemy? Actually, in theory, our visit to the Lingjian school should be for the friendly exchange to enhance our friendship. Zhao Jiangyuan muttered. But didn't the elders say that if there's an opportunity we should give them a lesson? We're just following the elders' request, this group of barbarians, Hai Yunfan laughed. Now it seems like we don't have a chance. We've lost 3 times in a row. Even if we have the upper hand in the academic exchange, so what? 3-1 we'll still lose. Zhao Jiangyuan frowned. Junior brother, you're just trying to boost the prestige of others. Senior brother, you misunderstood me. I just want to say, since it's very difficult for us to give them a lesson, why don't we simply give up this unrealistic goal? The elders only told us because of the Xingjing sect's greeting. Is it necessary for us to implicate ourselves so deeply just for the greeting of a nouveau riche? Zhao Jiangyuan's complexion turned bright. Hearing you say that, my heart suddenly feels a bit better. We really don't need to work ourselves to death for a nouveau riche. Hai Yunfan smiled. Moreover, from an objective point of view as a scholar, Wang Lu is a very powerful person. Perhaps his cultivation base is not high, but his strong point is very dazzling. Rather than blindly insisting on being his enemy, it's better to learn from each other's strong points. I believe that he will also be interested in the uniqueness of our 10,000 Arts sect. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, thinking that what Hai Yunfan said was indeed reasonable. From another point of view, if Wang Lu is not a disciple of the Lingjian school, but a fellow disciple of our 10,000 arts sect, don't you guys want to be friends with him? After a pause, Hai Yunfan added, I heard that he runs his own force and is very rich. Humph, he's also a nouveau riche. Several academic talents responded with disdain. However, Hai Yunfan could see that these people were actually slightly moved. After all, the temptation of being friends with a local tyrant was difficult for even scholars to resist. Of course, this was not enough. Hai Yunfan pondered for a moment and then threw out his card. Moreover, building a good relationship with Wang Lu will help us establish contact with other people in the Lingjian school through him, such as Lu Li, who is also a successor disciple. As Hai Yunfan said that, he was satisfied to see that the attention of his eldest brother had been attracted. Another example is that gentle and amiable outer court disciple Yu Xinyao. Very good, Lu Qiankai was attracted. Or the petite and lovely inner court disciple Huaying. That's great, even senior brother Zhao Jiangyuan turned around. Hai Yunfan smiled. Therefore, I think we might as well go find Wang Lu and have a talk tomorrow morning. That makes sense. That's right. We do need to talk. After coaxing his senior brothers to return to their respective rooms to rest, Hai Yunfan was about to turn around and leave when he heard a woman's sigh. Junior brother, it's really hard on you. Hai Yunfan's figure suddenly stagnated. Senior sister? Since we came here, you have been trying to resolve the contradiction, turning the two sides from enemies to friends. This time you finally got your wish. Hai Yunfan wryly smiled. If not for the three senior brothers being disheartened, I'm afraid they wouldn't have listened to what I just said. But, senior sister is right, I always think that offending Lingjian school just because of a greeting from Xingjing sect is really not wise. Yi Feifei asked, are you afraid of Wang Lu? Hai Yunfan was silent for a moment, and then frankly said, Senior sister, you also know that in the past, I participated in the Lingjian school's immortal gathering. Later on, I was fortunate enough to be recommended by the 10,000 arts sect. On the immortal path, I have seen the fierceness of Wang Lu. To be honest, he is one of the people that I don't want to be enemies with. And Lingjian school is far more powerful than it looks. Yi Feifei gently smiled. Wang Lu is indeed very powerful. I also don't want to encounter that kind of enemy. As for tomorrow morning, we will have to rely on you to open up the situation. Hai Yunfan said, Senior sister, rest assured. Although we haven't seen each other for several years, I should still be able to talk to Wang Lu. It's getting late, senior sister, you should go rest. Yi Feifei nodded, and before leaving she said, this time, thank you for persuading Zai. Otherwise, with his temper, once he gets into a dead end, he might cause big trouble in Lingjian school's territory. Senior sister is too polite. Big brother's business is my business. Hai Yunfan smiled freely and waved goodbye to Yi Feifei. However, when he turned around, his smile revealed a bit of bitterness. The next morning, the group of 5 people, according to the plan made last night, went from the Cloud Wave boat to the Spirit Sword Mountain's non-phase peak to visit Wang Lu. Setting foot on the solid ground of the 4 divisions peak, Zhao Jiangyuan laughed. Actually, I don't feel anything. Fortunately, I felt awkward for so long yesterday. Zhanzai also laughed. As long as you have a calm mind and treat this exchange activity as a real exchange activity, there's actually nothing to feel awkward about. That open-minded smile was really hard to imagine that just last night, he was still entangled because of the Gate of All Living Things incident. As a knowledgeable person, Hai Yunfan naturally knew what his eldest brother was thinking. In fact, his eldest brother was not a person who could hide things. While walking toward the non-phase peak, he excitedly said, that Lu Li's brilliant sword heart isn't even recorded in our book of 10,000 arts. There's only a brief introduction about it, so it's most likely an immortal level method. Lingjian school is known to have the ancient immortal inheritance, so it seems that there's a bit of a possibility. If there's an opportunity, I really want to exchange a few moves with her. Hai Yunfan laughed. There's naturally an opportunity. I heard that in a few days, there will be a competition between the 2 sects' disciples. At that time, as our trump card, senior brother, you will certainly have to face the Lingjian school's successor disciple, Lu Li. I just hope you won't be too ruthless. Zhanzai repeatedly shook his head. How could that be? We're here to have a friendly exchange, not to embarrass others. Not to mention Lu Li, even if I encounter Wang Lu, I will still be merciful and not embarrass him. While talking, the group of people had already arrived at the boundary of the non-phase peak. That simple and crude cabin was right in front of them, from which came a burst of laughter of men and women. The several people were stunned for a moment, but soon they recognized that the owner of the voice was Wang Lu, Lu Li, Yu Xinyao, and Huaying, these 4 people. Hearing the four people laughing together, Zhan Zai, who was walking in the front, suddenly stopped and looked surprised. Hai Yunfan, who was behind him, quickly said, "They're from the same sect, so it's normal for them to have a close relationship." Zhan Zai reluctantly smiled. "You're right, they're from the same sect, I think too much." Halfway through he couldn't continue because the content of the conversation inside the cabin was too explosive. "Haha, you guys lost again. 3 against 1 and you've lost 13 times in a row, what else can you say? How could there be someone like you, senior brother? You clearly know that we're novices, yet you don't give in to us. Moreover, no matter how we draw the cards, it's always 1 or 2 star cards, but in your hand it's always 5 or 6 star cards. Humph, the card draw has been checked by everyone. If your luck is bad, don't blame it on the prop. In short, if you're willing to bet, you must be willing to lose, so quickly take it off. But 1 for each person, we've already agreed, don't dawdle, quickly take it off and give it to me while it's still hot. I hate you. You go inside first, don't peek." Outside the cabin, Hai Yunfan cleared his throat and tried to make a final struggle. "Senior brother, I think this is probably a misunderstanding." However, the 3 senior brothers couldn't hear what he said at all. Chapter 152. In front of the wooden house, listening to the unbridled playful sound inside, the 10,000 Arts sect's little friends were stunned. After a long time, Zhan Zai was the first to turn his head. "Junior brother, since you and Wang Lu are old friends, then please tell him that after 3 days, let him wash his neck clean and wait for me." Zhao Jiangyuan coldly humphed. "Count me in." Lu Qingkai said, "Me too." The 3 of them with livid complexions left one after another. Yi Feifei hesitated for a moment and then followed them. Alone, Hai Yunfan stood in place for a long time before he sighed and knocked on the door. A moment later, the door was pulled open by an invisible force, and suddenly a strong smell of alcohol gushed out. Wang Lu and several women were sitting around a small table. All of them looked drunk, and each of them was holding a pile of cards in their hands. No one knew what kind of game they were playing. These people were probably really drunk. When they saw Hai Yunfan come in, they turned their heads to look at him and then unexpectedly ignored him. Wang Lu even waved his hand and said, "Little Hai, come and have fun together. Have fun, your sister." Hai Yunfan was so angry that he directly grabbed Wang Lu's hand and dragged him out of the group of women. In one breath they walked out of the house. As soon as they went out, Hai Yunfan released a clear mind and concentrated mind technique on Wang Lu. However, it didn't have any effect. He was stunned for a moment and was about to release it again when he heard Wang Lu sigh. "Little Hai, we haven't seen each other for many years, I can understand your excitement. However, I still have to say I like women, so you should give up." Hai Yunfan was silent for a moment. "Brother Wang, what are you doing?" Wang Lu asked. "What do you mean?" Hai Yunfan pointed at the charming scene in the wooden house. "To be honest, I feel that my 3 views are completely destroyed." Wang Lu was silent for a moment and then asked, "Just because I'm not gay? So you feel like you've been let down?" Hai Yunfan stomped his foot. "It has nothing to do with homosexuality. I mean, I didn't expect you to be such a womanizer." "Who said I indulged in women? I'm just playing strip cards." Hai Yunfan was dumbfounded. F***CK, isn't this even worse? It's already in the category of perverts. Wang Lu was puzzled. "Please explain the terrible reason." Faced with this self-evident question, Hai Yunfan suddenly felt choked. Is there even a need to explain? Moreover, they actually took off their clothes? Of course it's not that easy. That's why I gathered them in the name of celebrating the defeat of the 10,000 Arts sect, and then spared no expense to buy immortal spirit wine to make them drunk. Finally, I logically played strip card. I told them that this is a special custom of the eastern border region and they believed it. Hai Yunfan couldn't believe it. "Then they boldly did it in front of you?" Wang Lu scolded. F***CK, how could that be? Do you think this is the yin and yang school? Of course it's not in front of me, it's my master. Her only use as a woman is this. Your master, the 5th elder? Hai Yunfan recalled that just now, in the room, he seemed to have seen the figure of a woman in white. Yes, I'm the one who plays the card and she's the one who collects the benefits. Moreover, this game doesn't involve personal clothes. As long as you bet on clothes, scarves and other things, plus you also have the replacement clothes provided by my master, it's not so much a strip card as a change card. Therefore those fools didn't doubt too much. After being deeply shocked by the moral integrity of the master and disciple of non-phase peak, Hai Yunfan blankly asked, "What do you want their clothes for?" Wang Lu excitedly said, "Of course to sell them." "Sell them? Sell them to who?" Of course, to your several dead otaku senior brothers. I saw that as soon as they entered the mountain, they were unable to endure their hunger and thirst, so this kind of original flavor clothing is certainly their favorite. Lu Li's handkerchief should be worth it in exchange for a high-rank method from your senior brothers, right? But what if it's a coat, a long skirt, and so on? Furthermore, with my masters and my craftsmanship, we can use our existing resources to forge original flavor underwear. I think if we do it well, we can even trick them into signing the slave contract. Little Hai, why don't you and I cooperate and trick those idiots into becoming our slaves? Hai Yunfan was about to go crazy. Don't plan this kind of conspiracy in front of me. They are my senior brothers. Wang Lu looked at Hai Yunfan with a smile, and after a while he said something that made Hai Yunfan's hair stand on end. Little Hai, why can't you think straight? You have the slave contract of Zhan Zai and the others in your hand. You can sell it to Yi Feifei. At least, she should be interested in Zhan Zai's slave contract, right? If you give her the slave contract, perhaps her favorability will rise to the point that you can push it. Brother Wang Lu's smile became more enthusiastic. I'm just kidding. I know you're an upright person, so I can do this myself. Hai Yunfan was really helpless. Brother Wang, let's drop this matter. Senior brothers Zhan Zai and the others can't possibly make any deal with you. After that, he told Wang Lu everything that happened just now, which immediately stunned Wang Lu. *CK me. Sure enough, drinking too much will affect my perception. I didn't even notice your approach. What a pity. I've already won a few of their coats, so I'm not far from the core. Wang Lu paced back and forth, thinking about the countermeasures. Little Hai, what do you think about a discount? Hai Yunfan helplessly sighed. Brother Wang, perhaps in your eyes our 10,000 arts sect people are a bit dull, and our academic ability is probably not in your eyes, but at least we have backbone. Oh, then what do you think about a 30% discount? Brother Wang, I'm serious. Big Brother has put down the word that in 3 days he wants to have a match with you, so you should be prepared. Wang Lu smiled. What match? Stripping card? Hai Yunfan said, this time Big Brother and the others are serious. I'm afraid we can't just fool them. Originally, we also have the intention to compete with them, so, Brother Wang, you should be serious. I know you've always been fierce, but Big Brother is not someone to be trifled with. Perhaps he doesn't have your means in dealing with things, but to be able to get the lead disciple position among the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, he naturally has his ability. With that, Hai Yunfan was ready to leave, but then he heard Wang Lu curiously ask, lead disciple? Is he the sect's lead disciple? His cultivation base is only at the foundation establishment stage. Hai Yunfan explained, that's normal. The sect's lead disciple position doesn't only look at cultivation base, the most important thing is potential. Big Brother has reached the middle-level foundation establishment stage in just 8 years of cultivation, and within 30 years he is expected to obtain the King Pill. This kind of progress can be said to be second to none in the Wanxian League. Not to mention his academic ability has long surpassed his cultivation base. Therefore, the sect's Shudan senior brothers have no objection to him being the lead disciple. This is not easy, after all, the lead disciple position has many benefits. Wang Lu nodded and then asked, what are the benefits of being the sect's lead disciple? That's a lot. Once you become the sect's lead disciple, it means that you have become the target of the sect's full cultivation. Not only you can learn the sect's method at will, you can also apply for the sect's resources almost limitlessly. Moreover, the general sect's commandments don't apply to the lead disciple. Of course, the lead disciple also has to abide by the rules. But in short, it's like being the successor of the sect's leader. This rule is more or less the same among the major sections. Don't tell me your Lingjian school doesn't have it? Speaking of which, who is the lead disciple of your Lingjian school? Last time when your elder introduced the situation to us, he didn't mention the candidate of your lead disciple, so we were all curious. We thought it was Lu Li, but it seems like it's not her. Wang Lu was silent for a moment. Actually, I always thought it was me. After sending off Hai Yunfan and several drunken martial sisters, there were only the master and disciple 2 people left in the room. Just now, while Wang Lu and Hai Yunfan were talking, his master had already finished more than 10 bottles of spirit wine and was completely drunk. Seeing this, Wang Lu unceremoniously poured a bucket of cold water on her, but it was dispersed by the emerald green bamboo sword light. You, this traitorous disciple. Wang Wu lazily sat up and rubbed her eyes. Why are you looking for me? Wang Lu then simply told her what he just heard about the duel 3 days later, and then asked, Master, what do you think? Wang Wu yawned and said, that's just right. 3 days later, in the competition between the 2 sects, You can go on stage as the sect's representative and beat him into a pulp. Wang Lu cursed. Beat your sister into a pulp? High-level chi cultivating stage and middle-level foundation establishment stage, how could they fight? Hurry up and impart your lifetime's worth of skills to me. Wang Wu said with a smile, aren't you afraid that your body will explode and die? With this small body you want to count on my lifelong skill? Moreover, with your virtue, do you think you don't dare to fight just because your cultivation base is not high enough? I don't think so. How about this, in the next few days I'll teach you a sword art. If you master it, your chance of winning the cross-stage challenge will be greatly increased, which can be considered as me fulfilling my duty as your master. Wang Wu said it perfunctorily, but upon hearing it, Wang Lu nodded and no longer entangled himself in this matter. Instead he said, then, Master, tell me about the lead disciple of Lingjian school. Upon hearing this, Wang Wu was startled for a moment, and then she said with a smile, you want to compete for the lead disciple? Unfortunately, our Lingjian school doesn't have the tradition of having the lead disciple. Wang Lu asked, why not? Isn't that good? Wang Wu spread out her hands and said, because it's not necessary. Moreover, there has been no suitable candidate. Didn't you see that there are only a few successor disciples in the sect? Although there are many outstanding inner court disciples, none of them can bear the title of the lead disciple. Whether it's Zhu Shiyao or Lu Li, they're powerful enough, but their flaws are also very serious, so they're not suitable to carry the sect's prestige. Wang Lu pointed at himself with a puzzled look. Then isn't it logical to choose me as the lead disciple? Wang Wu said, you this weak chicken are really humorous. What the hell, weak chicken is also taught by you, okay? How about this? We can take advantage of this competition to push out the lead disciple system and raise the preferential conditions as high as possible. Then, you and I will cooperate and fight for the lead disciple position in my hand. Then, naturally, I won't forget your benefits. Wang Wu humphed. Your idea is indeed good. Unfortunately, if you can think of it, how could I not think of it? It's already been rejected by the other elders. Wang Lu said, because you're notorious, so the proposal is automatically rejected. In terms of notoriety, how much better are you compared to me? In short, in terms of overall quality, there are indeed some people who are optimistic about you as the future lead disciple. However, first, your cultivation base is indeed a bit lacking. Second, they don't feel at ease giving my non-phase peak too many privileges. Third, which is also the most important, our Lingjian school has always been not optimistic about this lead disciple system. They think that, in our sect's atmosphere, giving a person special treatment for a long time will do more harm than good, and it will hit the sect's morale more than encouraging, so this matter was put down. Wang Lu pondered for a moment and then said, since the main reason is to worry about the morale, wouldn't it be better to improve the plan to increase the fairness and universality? The sect's lead disciple does not have a fixed candidate and time limit, but can be exchanged with special points, similar to the treatment of an important customer for a limited time. Isn't that enough? Wang Wu said, although the idea is good coming from your mouth, it's a bit less convincing. As the number one disciple of Spirit Sword Sect, you clearly want to occupy the lead disciple position. So, change the point system. Since the lead disciple position is mostly used to fight with outsiders, then set up a military point system. By fighting with outsiders' disciples you can get points. Once you have enough points, you can exchange them for the privilege of being the lead disciple for a period of time. It just so happens that in this competition between the two sects, we can set up a sky-high reward. For example, the one with the best performance in Lingjian school will be awarded the honorary title of lifetime lead disciple. Then, as long as I find a way to get the first place, I can win the title of lifetime lead disciple. Wang Wu pondered for a moment and then said, if that's the case, there's a bit of a chance. Okay, in the next few days, you and I will intensify our cultivation, and then I will apply for this matter to the sect leader. Once it's approved, you will strive to get an excellent performance in the sect's competition. Chapter 153. The matter of the sect's lead representative has already been discussed with the sect leader. On this morning, on the non-phase peak, the two of them, master and disciple, were walking in the wasteland between the mountains while chatting. Your proposal has basically been reviewed and approved by the Heavenly Sword Hall. Most of the elders approve of the idea of exchanging points for treatment. Moreover, with the change in the situation of the 9 regions' immortal cultivation world in recent years, our Lingjian school can no longer be so self-contained. The exchange with other sects is bound to increase, so the lead representative system is still necessary. With that, Wang Wu took out a stack of materials from her mustard seed bag and threw them to Wang Lu. The next problem is how to win the lead representative position. The competition plan for the two sects has basically been decided. It's divided into two parts, group and individual. Needless to say, the group fight is a group fight. However, the individual fight is different from the usual way. While listening, Wang Lu had already opened the materials for the competition. After looking at it, he sneered and said, "This is interesting. Two sects each send out 5 people, group elimination, and compete for the final champion? What kind of competition is this?" It emphasizes the harmonious competition between the two sects, unity and mutual assistance. Two sects competing for the championship sounds more harmonious than a simple confrontation. Wang Lu said, "It's just to save trouble." Well, the two sects each send out 5 people, one of which is a substitute, and the other 8 people will compete in groups. After 3 rounds, the champion will be decided. Clean and efficient and cost-saving. However, this group fight is decided in 1 round, so the chance factor is not small. Since they are willing to accept this plan, the 10,000 Arts sect people are full of confidence. Of course they are confident. Speaking to this, Wang Wu finally turned around and stopped her footsteps. In fact, according to the calculation of the idiot sect leader, the probability of the other side winning in the final is more than 50%. Our people are likely to not even be able to enter the final. No matter how many advantages Lingjian School gained through your tricks in the past few days, in this competition between the two sects, our strength is still not as good as the other side. Among the 5 people, Yu Yun, Zhu Qin, and Yu Xinyao are just there to make up the numbers. The real key is you and Lu Li. In the next few days there will be other elders to train Lu Li. As for you? Wang Lu smiled. Don't worry, I already have a rough idea of that move. Although I'm still a little rusty when using it, I've been practicing it for the past 2 days, and I can barely use it in actual combat. While you're at it, remove Zhu Qin from the 3 who are here to make up the numbers. He's only good for looks, but he's not as good as that damn fatty. Wang Wu was stunned. She didn't expect Wang Lu to recommend that fat young man to her. Wen Bao? Whether it's his cultivation base or his cultivation technique, he's completely lacking, right? Wang Lu smiled. No matter what, he was still the director of the Intelligence Revenue Service. No matter how useless he is still a cadre that I brought up. He is still better than Zhu Qin. Your reason is not convincing. Moreover, this list is not up to me. Wang Lu said, "It doesn't matter, let Wen Bao and Zhu Qin fight. If there is an elder who has doubts, let him be a spectator. Once he sees the result, he will naturally have nothing to say." Wang Wu laughed. "You have so much confidence in that fatty? Sure, I'll arrange for them to fight tomorrow, and let Lu Xian and Fang He be witnesses." That afternoon in the Misty Peaks disciple dormitory, so that's how it is. Please go to the martial arts arena tomorrow morning and fight Zhu Qin one-on-one to prove your strength as the director of the infrastructure department of the Intelligence Revenue Service. Puff. Hearing the bad news, a certain fatty immediately spurted out a mouthful of old blood on the spot. "Senior brother, you can't trick me like this." Wen Bao almost burst into tears. "It's true that I'm the director of the infrastructure department, but I'm only responsible for logistics work. I rarely go to the frontline battlefield, so I can't fight." Wang Lu sneered. "I know you can't fight, but no matter how you can't fight, you're still a cadre of my Intelligence Revenue Service. You can't even defeat a good-for-nothing Zhu Qin. I'm not asking you to fight Lu Li one-on-one, so what are you afraid of?" "Senior brother, director. You overestimate me. My cultivation method is too extreme, so it's not suitable for a one-on-one fight. But senior brother Zhu Qin's attributes are comprehensive, and he has always been the leader of the disciples in the same batch." Wang Lu chuckled. "I still have something to do, so I won't listen to your nonsense. You can slowly analyze why you can't defeat Zhu Qin, but tomorrow morning I want you to appear on the arena on time." Then Wang Lu confidently turned around and left, leaving the fatty's cries behind him. The next morning at the Misty Peaks Martial Arts Arena, the crowd was boiling. Black and blue and white disciples surrounded the martial arts arena, enthusiastically watching the fight in the arena. On the martial arts arena, the fight between Wen Bao and Zhu Qin had reached its climax. Both sides were exchanging blows, neither giving way to the other. Before this, few people would have thought that the fatty, who had always been known for his simple and honest cowardice, could actually be evenly matched with an influential figure in the inner court. After 5 years of cultivation, coupled with the previous special training, Zhu Qin had now reached the high-level qi cultivating stage. Moreover, his strength was comprehensive without any shortcomings. Among the disciples in the same batch, he was one of the strongest. As for Wen Bao, not only was his magical power inferior to Zhu Qin's, but he also had a rough fighting style that emphasized purely on attack, so he could only display his strength when he cooperated with others. If he fought alone, he would easily fall into a passive position. In the past 2 years, the martial arts competition between the sect's disciples had proved this point. In the past 2 years, Wen Bao and Zhu Qin had fought more than 20 times, and Wen Bao had never won. However, this time, facing an opponent that he had never defeated before, Wen Bao's performance was jaw-dropping. Facing Zhu Qin, who was aggressive from the start, trying to end the battle quickly, he changed his usual hesitation and timidity, waving his huge sword that was the size of a door-board to meet him head-on. In the eyes of many people, this was simply digging his own grave. Even though his upgraded version of the mysterious iron sword technique was famous for its powerful offensive power and was unparalleled in terms of offensive power, this kind of bold and unastute charge had innumerable flaws all over its body. Zhu Qin only needed to casually grasp 1 or 2 flaws and he would be able to determine victory. And with his ability, how could he not grasp them? However, the actual evolution of the battle was beyond everyone's expectations. Wen Bao's already astonishing sword technique was several times more powerful than before. As he waved his huge sword that was the size of a door-board, sword chi shot out in all directions, like a human-shaped storm. Although the flaws were there was no way to deal with them. Zhu Qin made a sword gesture with his hand and activated the sword chi 3 times in a row, but it was all bounced off by the black iron sword chi. Zhu Qin was shocked, and he quickly used the swift spell to pull away. After observing for a while, he turned his spiritual power into a mantra and cast various spells on Wen Bao, such as slowing, confusing, and confusing. Zhu Qin's proficiency in the use of spells was among the best among the disciples in the same batch. When these spells were activated in succession, it often made the opponent feel as if they were trapped in a swamp, unable to exert their strength. Coincidentally, Wen Bao wasn't good at dealing with these spells, so he had to deal with every move that came his way. In the past 20 or so battles, most of them were suppressed by Zhu Qin's spells to the point that he couldn't move and was defeated in humiliation. However, this time the power of Zhu Qin's mantra was clearly stronger than before. It should have suppressed Wen Bao to the point of dizziness, confusion, and immobility. However, Wen Bao seemed to be unaware of it, and the momentum of his charge did not decrease in the slightest. Zhu Qin stared blankly for a moment before realizing that Wen Bao's blood and qi had been activated. He had actually used the protective aura of a martial arts grandmaster. This protective aura energy bounced off all of Zhu Qin's truth incantation technique, not having any effect at all. He could only continue to retreat and look for another opportunity. Generally speaking, the protective aura energy was one of the most powerful weapons for a martial arts grandmaster in the mortal world to kill a qi-cultivating cultivator. Unless one's magical power cultivation had passed the threshold of the foundation establishment stage, it would be very difficult for a qi-cultivating cultivator's spells to be effective against this invisible armor. However, the protective aura energy was extremely difficult to cultivate, and even Zhu Qin himself was helpless against it. He didn't expect that a dull fatty could actually use such a divine skill. Senior brother Wen Bao is so powerful. Could it be that he had been hiding his strength all this time? Outside the martial arts arena, Wen Yin, an outer disciple wearing a blue and white dress, looked at the arena in astonishment at Wen Bao, who seemed to be possessed by the god of slaughter. Although Wen Bao never had a chance to win against the agile and swift Zhu Qin, he had the protective aura energy and the black iron sword qi, so Zhu Qin couldn't do anything to him. Hiding his strength? With his IQ, how could he hide it? Right now, he just took a stimulant and performed exceptionally. Wen Yin asked curiously, performed exceptionally? Wang Lu pointed his finger to the side of the girl. Ask her and you'll know. Right, junior sister you? Yu Xinyao was a little embarrassed, her face slightly red. Senior brother, what nonsense are you talking about? How would I know? Wang Lu said, before when Wen Bao fought with others because he didn't have confidence in himself, he never let junior sister you watch, right? Yu Xinyao's face became more and more red. Senior brother Wang Lu, if you say that again I'll leave. Don't, if you leave wouldn't Wen Bao reveal his true colors? Yu Xinyao stamped her feet. She really didn't want to hear these words from him and, moreover, there's no point for senior brother Wen Bao to keep going. Although the two of them seem to be equally matched, his consumption is far more than senior brother Zhu Qin's. Even if his physical strength is amazing, he won't be able to last until the end. Wang Lu nodded and said, indeed, if this continues, the dead fatty will lose without a doubt. Therefore we have to give him a stronger stimulus to let him bring out his true skills. This time even Yu Xinyao herself was curious. A stronger stimulus? What would that be? Wang Lu shook his head and said, there's no other way. Initially, I didn't want to trouble that person, but since the dead fatty doesn't live up to expectations, there's no other way. With that, he turned around and clapped his hands. Miss Jianhu, please. Then, along with an indifferent sneer, a luxuriously dressed young woman walked to the side of the training field and stood there as if there was no one else there, watching the performance on the field. The disciples of Spirit Sword Sect began to discuss among themselves, but none of them recognized the identity of this strange woman. Only Wang Lu, with a familiar face, came forward and greeted her. Yo, Miss Jianhu. The person who came was the leader of the great Ming country's Mansion of Light, and also the Wisdom Sect's vice-sect leader, Li Nana. Seeing Wang Lu, Li Nana smiled and then turned her eyes back to the field. The fight is quite wonderful. As soon as her voice fell, the godlike Wen Bao on the field suddenly froze. The woman's voice made him feel as if he was struck by lightning. His mind could no longer think of anything else. At the same time, how could Zhu Qin, who saw the opportunity, miss it? He immediately rushed forward and thrust the flaming sword in his hand toward Wen Bao's vital point. Junior brother, you admit defeat. Don't block it. Bam. The door-sized sword danced with an unprecedented violent sword chi, which, like an avalanche, swallowed Zhu Qin. While everyone was dumbfounded, Wang Lu turned his head and smiled. Look, carnal desire. No, the power of love. Chapter 154. Zhu Qin's defeat surprised countless people. The identity of the woman who single-handedly reversed the situation was even more mysterious. Unfortunately, before they had the time to figure it out, that woman had already left. As the vice-sect leader of the Wisdom Sect, Li Nana, Yi Chuchen, and Taoist Ming Yun were now the three tycoons of the Wisdom Sect. Her power was monstrous, but she was also very busy. After being summoned by Wang Lu, it didn't take long for her to quickly return to the Wisdom Sect to deal with the affairs, which made someone endlessly disappointed. More than 2 years ago in the experiential learning, Wen Bao, as the real power figure of the Wisdom Sect, had a very close cooperation with Chen Hu of the Mansion of Light. And in that cooperation some things had indeed changed. It was just that the story behind it was not enough for outsiders to know. Fortunately, the showdown between Zhu Qin and Wen Bao was just a small interlude in the grand competition between the two sections. Whether it was the people from the Lingjian school or the 10,000 Arts sect, they all knew that among the 5 people from the Lingjian school, only the 2 successor disciples could be counted, while the other 3 were just foils. The real key was Lu Li and Wang Lu. Regarding these 2 successor disciples, the 10,000 Arts sect had been trying their best to analyze them, looking for countermeasures. Although the 10,000 Arts sect had always been known for their arrogant attitude, their arrogance was actually based on sufficient rationality. For weak enemies, they could appropriately ignore them to save energy. However, once they recognized the opponent's strength, they must go all out. Only victory was the capital to maintain their arrogance. The best proof of knowledge is power. If they lost, the pride of the 10,000 Arts sect would be worthless. The basic analysis of Lu Li's information has been completed. At present, it seems that she is an opponent with extreme advantages and disadvantages. On the Cloud Wave boat, eldest senior brother Zhan Zai earnestly explained to his 4 junior brothers and junior sisters. Regarding the analysis of the successor disciples of the Spirit Sword Sect, Yuan Chaoyan and the other elders didn't intervene. Everything was handed over to the disciples. And these 5 disciples didn't disappoint them. Their efficiency in collecting and summarizing information was very high. Moreover, the results were also quite satisfactory. The characteristics of the enlightened sword heart, at present there are mainly 2. One is clarity and transparency. In other words, her ability to transmit and transform magical power is very good. From the competition of the Big Eater King, as long as she has enough supplies, she can quickly transform it into her own magical power. Her ability to fight a prolonged battle is very outstanding. A few of the younger martial brothers said, "In other words, you want to end the battle quickly?" Zhan Zai said, "Being impatient for quick results is seeking one's own death." The clear physique created by the brilliant sword heart allows her explosive power to be abnormally strong. At present, even I have no way to block the 19-fold fiery sword that she specializes in. Yi Feifei asked, "Not even the profound ice shield and Vajra body?" The result of the calculation is that even if 5 layers of shields are stacked together with the diamond defense method, it still wouldn't be able to block her full power sword strike. In terms of explosive power, Lu Li is unparalleled. Although they already knew that the opponent was strong, especially as a sword cultivator, his explosive power was far superior to ordinary cultivators. But when they heard their senior brother say that he was incomparable, Yi Feifei and the others still felt that it was a bit unbelievable. Then how about using illusions to confuse him? As long as we can avoid a head-on confrontation, it doesn't matter how strong her explosive power is. Zhan Zai sneered and said, "This is the second troublesome thing about the brilliant sword heart. Not even a speck of dust can stain her, so common illusions are completely ineffective against her. Even the negative effects of sluggishness, rigidity, and so on are greatly reduced. In other words, she's a killing machine that can't be stopped." Upon hearing this, several people felt a chill down their spines. "Senior brother, if we encounter her, what should we do?" Zhan Zai was silent for a moment and then said, "Without any skill, we can only defeat her head-on with our strength. If we want to play tricks, those 12 small fries from the Blood Cloud Gorge are the best example. In that fight they still have a chance, but they didn't want to bleed and sacrifice themselves. Instead, they tried to slowly contend with the opponent. As a result, Lu Li's momentum was boosted, and her offensive became more and more fierce. Finally, she managed to kill the 12 monsters without suffering any damage. Therefore, if I must say it, I would choose to decide the outcome of the fight in the first round. Although the brilliant sword heart is powerful, it also has its weakness. Her defensive ability is insufficient, so there are still flaws in her moves. If we can catch them, we have the possibility to win." Hai Yunfan asked, "So, senior brother, what do you think is your chance of winning?" "At present it's about 70%. "Only 70%? Hai Yunfan's face sank, because according to this calculation, if other people encountered Lu Li, perhaps their chance of winning was less than 30%. Yi Feifei said, "In any case, she's the other side's trump card, so it's normal for her to have this ability. If the trump card can't even beat our small fries, it would be boring instead." Hey, second senior sister, who are you calling small fries?" Zhan Zai said, "Don't quarrel." Next is the analysis of Wang Lu. When it came to Wang Lu, everyone's attention was focused on him. Obviously, in their hearts, although Lu Li's strength was much stronger than Wang Lu's, the one who was truly worthy of their attention was still Wang Lu. After all, no matter how strong Lu Li was, their big brother always had a 70% chance of winning against her. However, Wang Lu, although his cultivation base was the lowest, no one dared to say that they could win against him. Especially his performance in the Gate of All Living Things, which simply left a psychological shadow in people's hearts. In the past few days, I have carefully collected the information on Wang Lu. Simply speaking, this is an opponent who, in theory, poses no threat on the arena. What? Is it inconceivable? However, from the current information, his magical power is only at the second level of Qi cultivating stage, and his cultivation method is his master's self-created non-phase method. His defensive ability is exceptionally astonishing. In theory, even if I go all out, it would be difficult to defeat him in a short time. However, correspondingly, his offensive ability is negligible. He doesn't have a powerful spell, his swordsmanship also lacks explosive power, so much so that he can't even stimulate the sword Qi from his body. His offensive ability, according to the average level of Lingjian school, is even worse than middle-level Qi cultivating stage disciples. In a fight against him, as long as he stands on the arena, he would be in an invincible position. He wouldn't even be a threat to that one Baolai. After all, if the latter goes all out, it's very likely that he would cause us some trouble. Yi Feifei couldn't believe it. In any case, he is a successor disciple of Spirit Sword Sect. How could he be? Zhan Zai said. It's probably because he spent too much time on the crooked path that he delayed his proper cultivation. It is said that his spirit root qualification is even better than Lu Li's, yet after 5 years of cultivation he still couldn't even reach the foundation establishment stage. Even if the average progress of Lingjian school is slow, it's still somewhat unreasonable. Humph, those barbarian guerrillas and nouveau riche like to laugh at our 10,000 arts sect people, saying that we only know academic research and strange and obscene techniques, but we delay the proper cultivation. This Wang Lu is even worse than us. Senior brother, this time I don't agree with your point of view. Hai Yunfan softly interrupted him. Even if it's crooked path, we've already lost to his crooked path 3 times. Compared to belittling the opponent, we should face the role of these crooked paths. Don't we, 10,000 arts sect, always advocate this kind of academic thinking? Zhan Zai gawked for a moment and then calmly nodded. Junior brother is right, I still subconsciously underestimate the opponent. Hai Yunfan said, in my opinion, Wang Lu's extreme defensive style creates the conditions for him to display his strength. If we can't defeat him in a short period of time, it means that we can't prevent him from using this time to play tricks. I believe all of us have experienced this. Once he grasps the rhythm, it's very easy to create miracles. Zhang Zai pondered for a moment. I understand. To deal with Wang Lu, we can't try to fight a protracted battle just because of his amazing defense. We must defeat him in the shortest possible time, not giving him the opportunity to play tricks. Hai Yunfan said, at least this is the only way I can think of. Zhang Zai said, then everyone should remember this point, don't be careless. Next, let's analyze the situation of the other three people. First is Yu Yun. Although his stage is not high, his comprehensive quality is very solid. However, he has the earth element spirit root, which is still flawed. My personal opinion is, while the 10,000 Arts sect was carefully deploying, the people of the Lingjin school naturally wouldn't be idle. Yu Yun, Yu Xinyao, Wen Bao, and even the rest of the inner and outer court disciples who didn't participate in the competition were all gathered in the 10-Cloud Hall of the Misty Peak, where the reward giver Elder Lucien explained to everyone. Zhang Zai, middle-level foundation establishment, first-rank Thunder Spirit Root, core method of 5 Thunder Sutra. Yi Feifei, low-level foundation establishment, second-rank Fog Spirit Root, core method of 5 Thunder Sutra. The information of the 5 disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect, their respective characteristics as well as the key points in the fight, were all deduced by the Heavenly Sword Hall elders, sorted out and summarized and then explained in detail to the disciples. By Lucien. Unlike the 10,000 Arts sect, the disciples of the Lingjin school didn't pursue the early stage of immortal cultivation. Therefore they were generally late bloomers. At present, most of the people present haven't even touched the foundation establishment, so it was unrealistic to force them to be able to take charge. By the way, where are senior sister Lu Li and senior brother Wang Lu? Among the disciples of the 10-Cloud Hall, Wen Yin whispered, they should be the main force. They? Being asked about this, Yu Xinyao somewhat helplessly sighed. Senior sister Lu Li has been specially trained by fourth uncle. It is said that a considerable part of the special training program was formulated by senior brother Wang Lu, which is called brain teaser. Wen Yin seemed to understand and nodded. Then what about senior brother Wang Lu? He said his fight he will solve it himself. Wen Yin's eyes widened in surprise. That line is so cool. Heck. Yu Xinyao shook her head and inwardly said, you haven't heard the even cooler line. Half a day ago, at the request of her master, Yu Xinyao went to the non-phase peak to find Wang Lu to listen to the lecture, and this was how Wang Lu responded. The tactics of those mediocre people of the Heavenly Sword Hall are an insult to the clear. Chapter 155. Amidst the intense preparation of the two sides, 3 days passed by in a flash. Early in the morning light had yet to penetrate the Spirit Sword Mountain's great cloud array, and the pre-dawn darkness still shrouded the 12 peaks of Spirit Sword Mountain. However, the Misty Peaks cloud platform was already crowded with people. For the disciples of Spirit Sword sect who always had a regular schedule, getting up early like this was a rare experience. However, in order to be able to witness the fight between the two sects, it was worth it. In any case, with their cultivation base, it didn't matter if they didn't sleep for a few days. The plan for the competition between the two sects had been announced the night before. The competition would last for 10 days. In the first 7 days, there would be 3 rounds of individual fights, and the final winner would be decided. After 2 days of rest, the team fight would take place. The rules of the individual fights were very simple. Each sect would send out 5 people, 4 of which would choose a substitute, and the remaining 4 would be eliminated. As for the group list, it was as most people expected. Although the two sects claimed that this list was randomly selected, for those cultivators whose cultivation base had reached Yuaning and deity stage, how could there really be any randomness in this world? Everything was so reasonable. In the first round, Yu Yun would fight against Zhang Zai, Lu Li would fight against Lu Chenkai, Wang Lu would fight against Zhao Jiangyuan, Wen Bao would fight against Yi Feifei, and Yu Xinyao and Hai Yunfan would be the substitutes. However, considering the second round, it was not difficult to find that Lingjin school seemed to have used Wang Lu as their final trump card instead of Lu Li Tisk. Sure enough, the real trump card is still Wang Lu. Junior brother is right. Although his cultivation base is not high, it's meaningless to measure his strength by cultivation base. However, no matter how strong his non-phase method is, under the Annihilation Divine Thunder, on the cloud platform, Zhang Zai's mind had been completely attracted by the matter of Wang Lu, so much so that he didn't even notice that under the cheers of the Spirit Sword sect's disciples, his opponent had already walked onto the platform. Looking at the spellbound opponent in front of him, Yu Yun couldn't help but wryly smile inwardly. He had no other choice, this was his fate as a cannon fodder. Although his cultivation was not bad among the other inner court disciples, He simply couldn't enter the eyes of the lead disciple of the 10,000 Arts sect. However, this was also a matter of course. He had been cultivating on the mountain for nearly 8 years, but his cultivation was only at the high-level Qi cultivating stage, and the towering palace in his inner mansion had only been built a corner. There was still 1 or 2 years before his jade mansion would reach the realm of connecting the inside and the outside. But the young man in front of him had only used 8 years of time to walk very far on the path of foundation establishment. Regardless of magic power cultivation, arcane method realm, or even various miscellaneous studies, Zhan Zai was far above him. 1 day ago in the Teng Cloud Hall, his master Lu Xian had already made a judgment. If he were to fight with Zhan Zai, his chances of winning would be less than 10%, and this was already the result of all the Heavenly Sword Hall elders racking their brains. Of course, if he really disdained to win at all costs, there were many other ways. Lingjian School didn't have as many ancient books and records as the 10,000 Arts sect, but there were always a few sets of immortal level restriction method, such as using one's innate lifespan as the price, one's future cultivation as the price, one's big heart demon oath as the price. There were many such methods. However, at that point, the Lingjian School had already lost without a fight. The other side hadn't even shown their cards, but this side had already shown their underwear. If this wasn't a loss, then what was? However, even if he knew that he would lose, Yu Yun still had a boiling fighting spirit. His opponent was the lead disciple of the 10,000 Arts sect, one of the top geniuses in the entire immortal cultivation world, so it was normal for him to lose. Therefore, as long as he brought out his full strength, it would be fine. Hey junior brother Yu Yun, what's with your mentality? While Yu Yun's fighting spirit was high, a familiar voice came from the cloud platform. Senior brother Wang Lu? Diske, why do you look so calm and unruffled? The fight hasn't even started and you already admit defeat. Moreover, you admit defeat in such a cool way, junior brother. How much do you want to suffer? Being questioned by Wang Lu, Yu Yun could only spread out his hands and wryly smile. But my strength is indeed not as good as the opponent. Wang Lu sneered. If I admit defeat because I'm not as good as the opponent, I would have already lost 100 times in a row. If my strength is not as good as the opponent, then I'll use my brain to make up for it. Forget it, I know you're not good at this, so I've prepared a brocade bag for you. Use it when the time is right. You may not be able to turn the tables, but it's still useful. With that, he threw a mustard seed bag to Yu Yun. When Yu Yun was about to open it, he was stopped. Use it when the time is right, don't rush to open it. Oh. After receiving the brocade bag, Yu Yun's heart calmed down a bit. At this time, Zhan Zai finally came back to his senses and looked at his opponent. Yu Yun, second level Qi cultivating stage, earth element spirit root, his comprehensive evaluation was nothing to worry about. However, even a lion would use its full strength to catch a rabbit, so there was no need to give him any chance. According to the deductions made before the battle, there was a 90% chance that the opponent would choose the strongest defensive method out of his cautious nature to stall for time. Judging from the realm of the cultivation method, it should be the 10th layer solid earth shield. The 10th layer solid earth shield was not sensitive to the interaction and restraint of the 5 elements, but there were 3 points of interruption that could be used when it was continuously activated. Secondly, considering the opponent's magical power level, spirit root aptitude, and other conditions, the peak duration of the earth shield was no more than an incense stick worth of time. Moreover, in a short period of time, the opponent couldn't continuously output a large amount of magical power. Therefore, through a variation attack, the opponent's defense could be easily torn apart. However, these had little to do with him. When there were too many methods to exploit, the so-called weaknesses were irrelevant. The people of the 10,000 Arts sect had always been good at using 4 tails to overcome 1,000 caddies, but when needed, it was not impossible to use one's strength to overcome 10. Thinking to this, within the thunder pool in his jade mansion, the power of the 5 thunders began to rumble. From the outside, everyone could see that Zhan Zai's body began to emit dazzling electric arcs. His whole body floated up as light as a feather, and his palm was surging with lightning, which contained a heart-palpitating destructive power. On the rooftop, each of the 2 sects sent out an elder as the referee. The 10,000 Arts sect's team leader Yuan Chaonian came forward, while the Lingjian school chose Lu Xian. Seeing Zhan Zai's lightning body technique, Lu Xian slightly frowned. Is this the thunder body? I'm afraid it's already at the 8th layer. I can't believe that your sect's disciple, who is only at the middle-level foundation establishment, could already practice the thunder body to this level. Yuan Chaonian smiled and nodded, but inwardly he was actually surprised. Zhan Zai had indeed practiced the 8th layer of the thunder body, but now he only showed the 6th layer. Moreover, in recent years the sect had improved this method, so its performance was quite different from the old version. Unexpectedly, this spirit sword sect's elder, whose cultivation was not high, actually had such good eyesight. Your sect's Yu Yun is also not bad. His basic skill is very solid. I can see that he has put a lot of effort into his body refining stage. Lu Xian said, Hee with Zhan Zai's thunder body, our Lingjian school's body refining stage is like a child's play. Okay, enough talk, let them start. Please give the order, Brother Lu. The next moment, along with the referee's order, the dazzling lightning on the cloud platform suddenly bloomed, as if a scorching sun was ignited on the rooftop. Many of the surrounding spirit sword sect disciples suddenly felt their vision blurred. The deafening sound of rolling thunder followed closely behind. The clouds on the cloud platform tumbled, trying their best to dispel the power of the tremors. When the sound and light gradually calmed down, the outcome of the battle on the platform was already decided. The two of them were still standing on the rooftop, not changing their positions, but the lightning in Zhan Zai's right hand had been extinguished. On the other side, Yu Yun coughed with blood on the corner of his mouth. Just now, the confrontation only lasted for one round, but Zhan Zai's thunder palm easily penetrated Yu Yun's solid earth shield. Although the power of the thunder palm was offset by the shield and didn't cause any real damage, Yu Yun's shield was connected to his inner mansion. After it was broken, his inner mansion was shaken, causing internal injury. While Yu Yun tried his best to circulate his magical power to repair his inner mansion, he sighed inwardly, this is only one round. Moreover, if I wasn't careful and pushed my solid earth shield to the extreme, I wouldn't have been able to survive the first round. When facing an opponent from one of the 5 uniques and losing all the privileges of a famous sect's disciple, Yu Yun finally realized how strong a real foundation establishment cultivator was. That overwhelming strength was simply despairing. Although Yu Yun still had a variety of moves to use, looking at the lightning in his opponent's right hand, he knew that his struggle was meaningless. There was no other way. It seemed like he could only pin his hope on the brocade bag that his senior brother sent. If I don't use it now, I won't have another chance. Thinking so, Yu Yun opened his mustard seed bag and found a silk handkerchief inside. Taking out the handkerchief, Yu Yun was still stunned when he saw that Zhan Zai's expression became even more surprised. His primordial spirit was divided, and he almost couldn't even maintain his thunder body. This familiar smell, could it be? Yu Yun was baffled, but then he saw a note in the mustard seed bag. On it was written, read this. This is the silk handkerchief that senior sister Luli uses to wipe her sweat. If you want it, obediently admit defeat. After reading it, Yu Yun's hand trembled and he almost dropped the silk handkerchief to the ground. At the same time, the entire rooftop was silent. A moment later, a lively girl's voice echoed, that's really the silk handkerchief that I lost 2 days ago. Then her mouth was blocked by an unknown force, no longer able to speak. After a long time, Zhan Zai said with difficulty, what did you say? Yu Yun spent a lot of determination to convince himself to read it again. If you want this silk handkerchief, obediently admit defeat. Are you kidding me? Yu Yun's complexion was complicated. I also hope that this is a joke, but at this time someone from the audience suddenly said, Brother Zhan, you have to think about it clearly. Even if you surpass all the difficulties in this competition, so what? You're already the sect's lead disciple, so you can't get any more benefits. However, this silk handkerchief, if you miss this village, you won't be able to find it again. Zhan Zai's eyes narrowed. Who? The voice from the audience was illusory. Obviously, it had been masked by a special method. This place was the home of Lingjian school, so Zhan Zai couldn't distinguish the identity of the person. Apart from vanity, what else is there in this kind of exchange activity? Why would the honor of the 10,000 Arts sect be supported by this kind of false reputation? Your strength is obvious to all, so even if you lose, it won't damage your prestige. On the contrary, it can show your sincerity, right? Zhan Zai gawked. I believe that no woman would refuse such a powerful, romantic and sincere man. Therefore, Brother Zhan, you have to carefully consider the choice. Zhan Zai earnestly stared at the silk handkerchief in Yu Yun's hand and began to make a difficult choice. Facing Zhan Zai's burning eyes and feeling the deathly silent atmosphere around him, Yu Yun wanted to cry but had no tears. Zhan Zai simply wanted to cry but had no tears. Senior brother, you've really dug my grave this time. However, on the other hand, if Zhan Zai really admitted defeat, it seemed. At this time, another person from the audience shouted, Senior brother, don't fall into his trap. Zhan Zai turned his head, his face slightly red. Junior brother Yunfan? Are you kidding me? How could I fall into such a cheap trick? Although he said that, his eyes were still focused on that silk handkerchief, quite reluctant to part with it. Hai Yunfan helplessly shook his head and had to take out a prop that made his eldest brother dumbfounded. It was a silk handkerchief. Although its style was different from the one in Yu Yun's hand, its taste was the same. Where did you get it? Hai Yunfan sneered. I just went to ask for it from her. Senior sister Lu Li is cheerful and generous. This silk handkerchief can be exchanged with 2 candies. Senior brother, be good, be good. When you win, I'll give this silk handkerchief to you. There was a deathly silence on the stage. A moment later, that illusory voice with a slightly dejected tone sounded. Lu Li, that idiot, ruined my big event. Chapter 156. Enough, I admit defeat. In the end, Yu Yun couldn't bear the pressure and chose to retreat. When he walked down from the rooftop, Yu Yun's heart was filled with complex emotions. Thanks to Wang Lu's brilliant plan, he didn't expect to see a heroic and elegiac fight. He didn't lose like a warrior. However, to be honest, in that one round of confrontation, Yu Yun had clearly seen the gap between the two sides. Zhan Zai didn't use his full strength. No, he should say he used his full strength, but he used his full strength to control the situation rather than defeat his opponent. The thunder palm that just broke the earth shield was the result of his exquisite calculation, so it wasn't that he couldn't go further. If he continued to fight, it would only be a one-sided massacre. Perhaps it would be better for him to end the fight in such a ridiculous situation? When he walked down from the platform, Yu Yun vaguely guessed that perhaps this was the care of his senior brother Wang Lu, but it was a bit hard to accept. In any case, the first round of the competition between the two sects was over. Before the next fight, the elders of the two sects needed to give their comments, which was also the most important part of the competition. The two sects who were selected to fight were the elites among their peers. If placed in the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions, they were the elites among the elites, which could be called the pinnacle showdown. However, in the eyes of Yuanying and deity stage cultivators, there were naturally countless flaws in their fight. Thus, the mistakes made by both sides in the fight, how to avoid them, and how to improve their own cultivation method, were all carefully pointed out by the elders. And these casual pointers from the elders for ordinary cultivators were the golden jade advice that they yearned for even in their dreams. However, this time, in the face of such an embarrassing situation, the elders of the two sects maintained a long period of silence. Ahem. As the host, Lu Xian had to open his mouth to break the awkwardness. Just now, the lead disciple of the 10,000 Arts sect, Zhan Zai, and my sect's Yu Yun have brought a wonderful fight to everyone. Zhan Zai is indeed the top disciple of the immortal sections. Not only is his dermic power and cultivation profound, but his 5 Thunder Sutra has also reached a certain level of attainment. The power of his thunder battle physique is obvious to all. I hope that the disciples of both sects can learn from Zhan Zai and work hard to improve their cultivation. Compared to the expectations of the audience, Elder Lu Xian's speech was obviously a little dry. In many people's eyes, after the disciples' battles ended, the elders' comments were the continuation of the battle. For example, Lu Xian could point out the advantages and disadvantages of the 5 Thunder Sutra one by one, and put himself in Yu Yun's perspective. If he were Yu Yun, how could he win against Zhan Zai? Although Yu Yun's cultivation was much lower than Zhan Zai's, if he really had the experience and eyesight of a peak nascent soul stage elder, it would not be difficult for him to win. At the same time, Yuan Chaoyan had to stand in Zhan Zai's perspective and resolve Lu Xian's tricks. Both sides engaged in a battle of words as if they were in a real battle. However, at this time, how could Lu Xian have the face to continue the battle? He could only say some empty and tasteless words of praise to end this embarrassing comment session as soon as possible. However, when Yuan Chaoyan opened his mouth, it was unexpected. The battle just now was indeed very exciting, especially the unexpected means of the Lingjian school. It showed us a simple and profound truth. Victory or defeat is not only determined by the cultivation of dermic power and the realm of the cultivation method. Don't think that just because you have an advantage in strength you can win. In the battle just now, Zhan Zai had an overwhelming advantage in strength, but if it weren't for Hai Yunfan's help, I'm afraid he would have lost. Lost because of a silk scarf. Below the stage, Zhan Zai's face turned red. Wait, I won't lose? Yuan Chaoyan coldly snorted. Before you talk back, can you first take away that silk scarf in your hand? I won't take it away even if I die. Facing his master, the lead disciple showed amazing courage. Yuan Chaoyan glared at his rebellious disciple and decided to wait until later to teach him a lesson. Then he continued to comment. Many people might think that Zhang Zai is mentally retarded. Is it because his cultivation of mind has collapsed? But in fact, his comprehension and intelligence are better than most people here, and his cultivation of mind is also unquestionable. The 16-fold Scarlet Thunder Immortal Heart in terms of progress is much higher than his Thunder Body realm. However, cultivating the mind does not mean that one's mind is flawless. On the contrary, more than half of the methods of cultivating the mind in the immortal cultivation world will only make the cultivator's mind more intense. When strength is magnified, flaws are also magnified. The so-called supreme forgetfulness is already a thing of the past. Needless to say, the flaw in Zhang Zai's mind is very obvious, and the opponent cleverly and reasonably used this flaw. Many people might think that this is too despicable. However, when you know that you are not as strong as the opponent, and you don't even have a chance of winning, you still want to force yourself to fight head-on. That's stupid. Since the rules don't prohibit it, then you should boldly take advantage of the opponent's flaw, using the small to win the big, using the weak to win the strong. I hope you guys can seriously understand this truth. With that, there was a thunderous applause from the audience, most of which were from the disciples of Lingjian school. Because no one thought that the 10,000 Arts sect elder, who was known for his insufferably arrogant attitude, would actually be so open-minded. His words were clearly exonerating a certain despicable villain. Respectable, this open-mindedness was really respectable. When this round of competition and comments was over and the two sides were ready for the next round, Yuan Chaoyan accompanied the several elders to the area where the disciples were gathered. Sure enough, some people were deeply dissatisfied with his remarks just now. Master, why did you exonerate those despicable villains? They obviously violated the rules. Zhao Jiangyuan was the most annoyed and loudly questioned. Yuan Chaoyan sneered. Violated the rules? Which rule did they violate? You should be able to memorize the rules of the competition, so why don't you tell me about it? Zhao Jiangyuan was suddenly at a loss for words. But it's indeed dissatisfying. Dissatisfying? It seems like what I said just now was in vain. I thought that the experience of your big brother could make you guys sober up a bit, but it seems like you guys are more stubborn than I expected. Yes, the other party is indeed despicable and shameless, but if not for Hai Yunfan's equally despicable and shameless response, your big brother would have lost. Before I went down the mountain, the sect leader specifically told me that if this Lingjian school is really unworthy of its name, then I'll just trample on it. But if not, consider this as a rare experiential learning, no matter what kind of setbacks you experience. Among the several of you, except for Yunfan who still knows the ways of the world, the rest of you have come up the mountain to cultivate at a young age, so your vision is still too far away. The reason why the sect leader let me lead the team is, in fact, to have the opportunity to let me say those words just now. After being roared at by their master, the disciples were suddenly speechless. However, since the other party has used this kind of despicable trick, it can be seen that they have exhausted their limited tricks. In the end, although strength is not everything, it is the most important factor, and your strength should be able to overwhelm the opponent. Therefore, in the next 3 matches, don't let me down. Yi Feifei, Zhao Jiangyuan, and the others responded in unison. After half an hour, the second match began. At this time, around the cloud platform, the enthusiasm of the audience was twice as intense as before. Because Lu Li appeared. As the strongest trump card of Lingjian school in this competition, as well as a well-known successor disciple, Lu Li's popularity was overwhelmingly strong. Even the other successor disciple, Wang Lu, was far from being comparable to her. When she floated on the stage with a light sword in her hand, the surrounding cheers and screams seemed to be able to pierce through the clouds. Senior sister Lu Li, we love you. Hey hey hey, Lu Li lightly turned her head and smiled. Her colorful dress danced like a rosy cloud. Senior sister Lu Li, come on, show them what you got. Yes yes. The girl vigorously nodded her head and clenched her fist to make a cheering gesture. Senior sister Lu Li, we want to see the brilliant sword heart. Oh? The girl made a no-problem gesture, smiling like a flower. At the other end of the cloud platform, the opponent, Lu Chengkai, slightly revealed a sneer. Senior sister Lu Li, you're really arrogant. Even senior brother only has 70% chance of winning, so if it's me, I'm afraid I don't even have 30% chance of winning. However, a 1/3 chance of winning is not low. As long as the plan is right, winning is not unusual. Both of them were low-level foundation establishments, so there was no gap in magical power. Lu Li relied on nothing more than the advantage of the ancient inheritance brilliant sword heart, which was known to be comparable to high-rank immortal method. However, for that kind of extremely prominent method, as long as one is prepared in advance, it's not completely unstoppable. And in order to deal with your brilliant sword heart, I have spent a whole day's effort. If it's third brother or even second sister, perhaps they wouldn't be able to prepare to this point. Therefore, choosing me as your opponent can only be considered as your bad luck. Before long, the elders of the two sects ascended the cloud platform. After confirming that there was no mistake, they announced the start of the match. Almost at the same time, Luli chuckled and made her move. With a single thought, the girl crossed more than half of the cloud platform. Her colorful dress pulled out a gorgeous rainbow, which, like a sharp sword, stabbed toward the opponent. Lu Qiansai's jade mansion shook violently. He felt as if a stormy sea came crashing toward him. The girl's light and long sword thrust forward. In his field of vision, it was only a negligible point, but with his primordial spirit, he felt a raging flame that could burn the sky and boil the sea, as well as a sharp sword intent that could split the heaven and earth. The immortal level fiery sword art, with the support of brilliant sword heart, was beyond imagination. The sword intent and the true fire were perfectly blended. This strike seemed to be unstoppable. Even if his senior brother was here, he absolutely wouldn't be able to block it. However, Lu Qiankai didn't evade nor escape. Instead, he remained indifferent. It was unknown whether he was caught off guard or he already had a well-thought-out plan. The next moment, the fiery sword art reached his body. In the eyes of the crowd, dozens of talismans around Lu Qiankai ignited, making his body illusory and concealing the flame. Then the sword light penetrated his body, but Lu Qiankai was completely unaffected. At the same time, both of Lu Qiansai's hands held a gloomy and dense talisman. His smile was grim. This was the moment he was waiting for. Previously, he had been in closed-door training for a day and a night, specifically to deal with the fiery sword art. Using his blood essence, he created dozens of talismans. There were illusory body, driving sword, burning body, and other talismans. Each talisman was drawn specifically for the fiery sword art and brilliant sword heart. Under the joint action of dozens of talismans, he could perfectly withstand the opponent's sword intent and true fire. This was the privilege that only a talisman master could have. Through a long time of planning and preparation, he could exchange it for a moment of astonishing power. Although under Lu Li's astonishing sword intent, Lu Qiansai's invincibility only lasted for a short moment, it was already enough for him to turn the tables and win. Just as his senior brother Zhan Zai said, although Lu Li's offensive was strong, her defense was not good. Using her sword to injure the enemy would also expose her flaw. If he wanted to win, he had to seize this opportunity. He would use these two evil ghost talismans to shock his opponent, making him an unexpected winner. However, the next moment Lu Qiankai was startled. A dark blue clear and agile long sword, like a flying immortal, suddenly came thrusting and endless waves swept away. As a knowledgeable disciple of the 10,000 Arts sect, he recognized that this was the weak water sword of the 16th layer, which was also the sword that his talisman couldn't resist. Damn, why didn't anyone say that this Lu Li uses two swords? Chapter 157. The second match between the disciples of Lingjian School and the 10,000 Arts sect only took a split second to decide the outcome, although in this split second there were quite a few changes. Amidst the tsunami-like cheers, Lu Li giggled and walked down the cloud platform with a face full of the joy of victory. "Senior sister Lu Li, you're awesome." Hee hee, Lu Li somewhat embarrassedly touched her cheek. "Senior sister Lu Li, we will always support you." The cheers were isolated by the array until they reached the rest area, in order to give the contestants a quiet environment. "Senior sister, isn't it too early for you to use your unique skill?" An outer court disciple who had been in the sect for more than 20 years and had already reached Shudan's stage chuckled as he brought a cup of hot tea. The tea was a special drink of the Carefree Peak, which could effectively restore magical power and boost one's spirit. Lu Li took the tea and smiled at this fellow disciple who entered the sect earlier than her and had a higher cultivation base, yet had to call her senior sister. "Because only by using my unique skill can I win." That outer court disciple nodded and no longer questioned her. Because although Lu Li said it lightly since it was her judgment, it must be correct. Brilliant sword heart was after all too rare. It was a high-rank immortal method, and its requirement for the cultivator was also very extreme. Even the 10,000 Arts sect didn't have a comprehensive understanding of it. In addition to the powerful explosive power and spotless physique, the complete brilliant sword heart could also give the cultivator an incomparably sensitive intuition, allowing them to subconsciously make the correct judgment. Lu Li thought that the fiery sword was not enough to win, therefore she immediately used her hidden card, the weak water sword, and then cleanly defeated the opponent. If her reaction was a bit slower, it was likely that she would be injured by the opponent's evil ghost talisman. However, as long as the brilliant sword heart was still there, even if the fight was repeated 100 or 1,000 times, Lu Qiankai still wouldn't be able to seize that little bit of gap to win. This was the successor disciple of Lingzhen school, the peerless genius that even the Heavenly Sword Hall elders were proud of. With her, no matter how arrogant the 10,000 Arts sect people were, they couldn't shake the self-confidence of Lingzhen school. At the same time, on the other side of the clouds, the rest area of the 10,000 Arts sect was in awe. Lu Qiansai's defeat was not surprising. What was surprising was that he had obviously done his best, yet he still didn't have the slightest chance. Lu Li was stronger than expected. A 16-fold fiery sword was already a headache, and now there was suddenly a weak water sword. With the two swords combined, how could they resist? At the very least, none of the people present had the confidence to withstand it. Even the eldest senior brother, Zhan Zai, had a gloomy expression. After a while, Lu Qian slowly said, "I don't think there's any need to be too pessimistic. Although the opponent suddenly has an extra trump card, this trump card just happens to be countered by the Thunder Battle body, so there's no problem." Zhao Jiangyuan smiled bitterly. It's easy to say. It's not just the weak water sword. The key is that the brilliant sword heart seems to have a new characteristic that we don't know. Several disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect had good eyesight, thus they were able to see the real problem. Where's junior brother Yun Fan? Lu Qiankai suddenly raised his head and asked. Seems like he's looking for an old friend. Yi Feifei absent-mindedly replied. The woman's mind was completely focused on the fight between their eldest brother and Lu Li, completely ignoring the whereabouts of their junior brother. Looking for an old friend? Lu Qiankai and the others were baffled. Hai Yun Fan indeed went to look for an old friend. On the periphery of the cloud platform, he and Wang Lu sat next to each other, talking and laughing wittily. Brother Wang, you're in a good mood? It seems like you're already confident in the next match? Little Hai, if you have something to say, just say it. Hai Yun Fan smiled. Brother Wang is really open-minded. I originally wanted to apologize to you for what happened just now. Wang Lu indifferently said, from the beginning, I didn't expect to be able to turn the tables with this silk scarf. I just wanted to create some trouble and observe the fighting strength of your trump card. Unexpectedly, it's worse than what I expected. However, it's good that Yu Yun lost. Otherwise, people would question the quality of this match. So, if you have something to say, just say it. Hai Yun Fan asked, if it were you, how would you deal with senior sister Lu Li? Wang Lu glanced at him. Why do you ask this? Hai Yun Fan said, I'm just curious. I believe that Brother Wang must have carefully considered this problem, because, if the fight goes smoothly, Brother Wang is very likely to meet Lu Li in the finals. Wang Lu said, yes, this is the most likely situation. Needless to say, on my side, neither Zhao Jiangyuan nor Yi Feifei can stop me. As for Zhan Zai, it's unlikely that he can win against Lu Li. Me and her are the most likely to compete for the championship. Hai Yun Fan didn't comment on this and just asked, then what do you think Brother Wang should do? To deal with Lu Li, of course you have to use your brain. She's so strong, if you insist on fighting her head-on, that's courting death. She's so stupid, so naturally you should use tricks to win. Tricks? Wang Lu said with a smile, for example, using 2 candies to exchange for a silk scarf. I can use the silk scarf to lure Zhan Zai to admit defeat, and perhaps I can use 2 candies to lure Lu Li to admit defeat. Hai Yun Fan laughed in spite of himself. Senior sister Lu Li is not that easy to deal with, right? Of course it's not that easy. No matter what, she has a master. She's been brain damaged for so many years, how could her master not give her any preparation? Certainly, before the competition, she must have done all kinds of explanations to prevent her from being deceived in the arena. By the way, before the fight, I have just participated in designing her special training course. Hai Yun Fan asked, since the design is so thorough, how could she use tricks? Wang Lu said, therefore you need to test her flaws bit by bit. For example, just now, it was said that you can use candy to lure her to admit defeat. However, perhaps before the fight, the elders have told her that she must not give up the victory for candy, so she was unmoved. Then you can use chicken legs, pig trotters, braised dog meat and other things to test her. Her only weakness is that she's not very clever, so you can only use this point. Unfortunately, your 4th brother is so stupid that he wasted an opportunity to test her. If he doesn't hold a fluke mentality and wants to decide the outcome in the first round, in theory, he should be able to hold on for a period of time. During this period he can test the opponent's real situation and look for the flaw in her IQ. Later, even if he can't win, he can create an opportunity for the later generation, which is your big brother. Upon hearing this, Hai Yunfan was stunned for a moment, and then he wryly smiled. Unfortunately, I didn't hear Brother Wang's golden advice earlier. Nonsense, I didn't tell you earlier. In any case, she and I are from the same sect, so it's impossible for me to help you deal with her. Speaking to this, Wang Lu's eyes suddenly turned. How about you, as the substitute of the 10,000 Arts sect? Don't you think it's a pity that you don't have the opportunity to shine on the field? If you need it, I can help you think of a way. According to the rules, the substitute could only go on the field when the winner of the match was unable to proceed to the next round. By saying this, Wang Lu was clearly trying to trick Zhang Zai, who had already won the first round. Hai Yunfan immediately refused. Forget it. Even Brother Wang disdains to collude with outsiders to harm his teammates, so naturally I disdain it even more. Wang Lu meaningfully looked at Hai Yunfan and said, "You're indeed worthy to be called Hai Yunfan with noble character. Speaking of which, I think your temperament is quite suitable for your second sister." Upon hearing this, Hai Yunfan trembled and then got up. "Master is looking for me, please forgive me for taking my leave first. Haha, I won't see you out." After returning to the 10,000 Arts sect's resting area, Hai Yunfan felt a chill on his back. His sect's robe had been soaked in cold sweat. He was a dignified Foundation establishment cultivator, and his physical strength was better than the top martial arts masters in the mortal world. However, Wang Lu's last words made his whole body quiver and cold sweat drip down like a waterfall. He was indeed worthy to be the miraculous youth on the immortal path. After not seeing him for a few years, he had become even more powerful than before. In their previous meeting, Hai Yunfan didn't feel it, but now that they had a one-on-one talk, he found out that this less than 18 years old young cultivator already had an astonishing power. Coupled with his unpredictable psychological attack, it was extremely painful. It wasn't hard to guess what Hai Yunfan was thinking, but it was precisely because of this that trying to use this as bait was simply a fantasy. He wasn't like Zhang Zai, a dead-headed otaku with a screw loose in his head. However, if the one who opened his mouth was Wang Lu, Hai Yunfan couldn't help but be tempted. Because since Wang Lu had opened his mouth, it was likely that he really had a way to make his dream come true. Even if Hai Yunfan wanted to refuse Wang Lu, it would be impossible for him to do so. If he said that he wanted to matchmake you, then you have no other choice but to get married and have children. Hai Yunfan's reaction was very fast. At that time, before Wang Lu's voice fell, he had already constructed a beautiful picture of the future in his mind, which made his heart palpitate with excitement. At the same time, he was also shocked. Fortunately, he had been cultivating in the 10,000 Arts sect for many years, so he wouldn't be unable to control himself just because of a few words. He immediately got up and left, ending the dangerous conversation. After taking a few breaths in the resting area, Hai Yunfan regained his spirit and happened to see his third brother, Zhao Jiangyuan, who was already eager to fight. The next fight would be between his third brother and Wang Lu. At this time, it had been some time since Lu Li defeated Lu Chenkai, but the enthusiastic atmosphere on the Cloud Tread rooftop hadn't diminished in the slightest. After seeing Lu Li's trick, people naturally looked forward to how Wang Lu, who was famous for his trickery, would deal with the 10,000 Arts sect disciple whose absolute strength was far superior to his. All kinds of speculations about this fight had become the focus of the audience. However, even the people from Lingjian School weren't very optimistic about Wang Lu's chances in this fight. Each side had their own opinions, but no one could convince the other. After listening to a few words, Hai Yunfan's heart slightly sank. Because even these disciples from Lingjian School couldn't accurately measure the strength of Wang Lu. This guy was considered mysterious in the Spirit Sword Mountain. And this kind of mystery was not very beneficial for the 10,000 Arts sect, which was accustomed to analyzing the information before the fight and formulating the tactics. "Senior brother, is victory in your grasp?" Seeing his junior brother coming over, Zhao Jiangyuan was slightly startled and then immediately replied, "Of course, it's impossible." With that, Zhao Jiangyuan felt a bit helpless. The information that can be analyzed is still too little. That non-phase method is too mysterious, even less than the brilliant sword heart. We only know that it's a method created by an elder of the non-phase peak, and its defense and survivability are extremely strong. However, we don't know how strong it is. If not for the fight between Elder Non-Phase and Taoist Master Jifeng of Xingjing sect 3 years ago, there wouldn't even be a few examples of it. Hai Yunfan asked, Hey, the sect hasn't analyzed the non-phase method? The information is too little, so there's no way to analyze it. However, if we can't analyze it, then we can't analyze it. He's just a punching bag. Do you think I'm afraid of him? Hai Yunfan smiled. Senior brother is right. The fight is about to start. I wish senior brother in advance. Halfway through his words, a burst of exclamation suddenly came from the other side, which was mixed with the screams of many female cultivators from Lingjian school. The sound was so loud that even the soundproof array couldn't completely block it. Ah, what's that? So cute. Look, it's looking at me, it's looking at me. The 10,000 Arts sect disciples looked at each other in dismay and then quickly looked around. They saw that at the other end of the cloud platform, Wang Lu had already made his preparations and slowly stepped onto the platform. At his feet, there was a mishmash of fur, but it looked naughty and cute. It was comfortably enjoying the attention of the crowd, happily running around. Damn, what's that? Chapter 158. Wang Lu, what is this thing? On the cloud platform, the Spirit Sword Sect elder, as the referee, frowned and asked. Wang Lu looked down at the flattering little thing, looked up and calmly replied, a dog. Nonsense, I asked you, what do you mean by bringing a dog up here? Wang Lu said, of course it's to participate in the competition, it's not like it's a wild game that you can taste. When the stupid dog heard the word wild game, its whole body trembled. Woof. Lu Xian asked, you want to bring a dog? Wang Lu asked back, the rules don't prohibit bringing a spirit pet, right? Although this dog is a bit stupid, after all, it's my spirit pet that has exchanged a contract with me. Moreover, its level is absolutely not over the limit, so please rest assured. Lu Xian turned his head to seek the opinion of the other referee. Yuan Chaoyan was also quite surprised. He had never heard that Lingjian school had an animal taming inheritance. Therefore, it was strange for Wang Lu to bring a dog to the stage. However, there was a primordial spirit connection between the human and the dog, so the identity of the spirit pet was unmistakable. Generally, the competition did not prohibit the contestants from bringing a spirit pet. Of course, there was a strict restriction on the level. Otherwise, it would be too unfair to Beastmaster School and other sections. Very well, since this disciple intends to show us the Lingjian School's animal taming skill, we will wait and see. Lu Xian inwardly smiled wryly, thinking, as the reward-giver elder, how could I not know that Lingjian School has an animal taming skill? However, he still nodded his head. Then the competition is about to start, please come on the stage. After the two sides took their positions, the two elders began to check the condition of the cultivators. This included not using external secret method to enhance the cultivation base, not carrying props and elixirs that exceeded the prescribed level, and not forcibly unsealing high-grade spiritual treasure. Of course, for this competition, it was just a formality. After all, there were a group of deity and yuanying stage-old monsters here, so no disciple was stupid enough to try to cheat. Lu Xian glanced at Zhao Jiangyuan briefly and nodded to indicate that he had passed. Yuan Chaoyan also sensed with his primordial spirit, but he saw something in Wang Lu's mustard seed bag, which made him slightly surprised. However, it was not against the rules, so he nodded and let them go. Thus, amidst the cheers of the spectators, the two cultivators stood facing each other on the cloud platform, making their final preparations. Zhao Jiangyuan held a rui scepter and a bronze mirror in his hand, silently chanting an incantation. A white mist came out from his 7 apertures and enveloped his entire body, seeming to be filled with dense yin qi, causing one to tremble with fear. An elderly cultivator of Spirit Sword Sect in the audience said, it really is witchcraft. However, the witchcraft in the Southern Heaven region has been flourishing since before the Age of Chaos. Now, witchcraft should be on the verge of extinction. 10,000 Arts Sect is indeed worthy, they can even find this kind of unorthodox method. Another person laughed and said, you might as well say that it's not easy to find people with the aptitude to cultivate witchcraft. I wonder if Wang Lu can cope with it. This witchcraft is strange and unpredictable, impossible to guard against. I wonder if his non-phase method can withstand it. Oh, legend has it that the 5th elder is a master of defense, so the method that she passed on to him should be good. However, Wang Lu's cultivation base is still lacking. While the people below were talking about it, Wang Lu turned a blind eye to the witchcraft in the Southern Heaven region. His hand was holding a piece of fat and tender streaky pork as he teased the dog with great interest. Such a posture was almost provocative. Therefore, the elders didn't wait any longer. Begin. Almost at the same time, Zhao Jiangyuan disappeared from his original place. His figure was like the wind and lightning. In an instant, he left behind a trail of afterimages as he rushed forward. The bronze mirror and Rui scepter, which were clearly magical treasures, were thrown away by him and were replaced by an astonishingly sharp sword. Sword cultivator? In an instant, countless people in the audience exclaimed in their hearts. Since the beginning of the sex exchange event, Zhao Jiangyuan had often pretended to be mysterious. His speech also revealed that he had a deep understanding of witchcraft. Most people guessed that his core cultivation method was witchcraft. However, they didn't think that all of this was just to cover up his real ability. He was a sword cultivator good at close combat, using force to break technique, one sword to break 10,000 methods. If one thought that he would slowly deal with the opponent with witchcraft and corrode the opponent bit by bit, then it would be a big mistake. Because Zhao Jiangyuan didn't intend to fight a protracted battle with Wang Lu. As analyzed before the fight, the victory was in the first round. As a sword cultivator, Zhao Jiangyuan was best at this decapitation tactic. The sword technique he cultivated was the celestial grade limitless sword. It could capture all the details of the opponent in an instant and find the flaw in the opponent's defense. It was a first-class technique to break the enemy. Moreover, his cultivation of magic power was far higher than his opponent's and his strength was also above Wang Lu's. His body was as fast as lightning and his heart was as still as water. When Zhao Jiangyuan pointed his sword straight, his five senses and primordial spirit had already firmly locked on the opponent. Even the slightest movement couldn't escape. In an instant he had already seen too many flaws. This sword will definitely pierce through you. At the same time, Wang Lu just threw the streaky pork in his hand forward with all his strength, trying to block Zhao Jiangyuan's vision. Zhao Jiangyuan remained unmoved. His mind had been completely locked on Wang Lu without any distracting thoughts. He didn't even care about the streaky pork that blocked his vision. The spirit sword in his hand suddenly thrust out. Under the impact of this sword intent, any junk would instantly turn into flying ash, just like Wang Lu who was behind the junk. However, the next moment, a sudden change occurred. Zhao Jiangyuan suddenly felt a sharp pain in his wrist. His magical power circulation was abruptly interrupted, and the limitless sword that had been accumulating power was actually difficult to continue. While he was stunned, Wang Lu's sword of Mount Kuan arrived. The sword thrust out, and the mysterious sword intent of the non-phase sword art just happened to force back the limitless sword. Zhao Jiangyuan staggered back and his chest felt uncomfortable. When he came back to his senses, he saw his wrist was dripping with blood, and 2 rows of teeth marks were deeply engraved on it. Shape-shifting? Zhao Jiangyuan's eyes were cold. He had already seen through the trick played by Wang Lu. It turned out that from the beginning, the streaky pork and the mottled dog had been reversed by Wang Lu's shape-shifting method. The dog was the meat and the meat was the dog. When he threw the streaky pork, it seemed like he was trying to block the line of sight, but in fact he was trying to let the dog bite him. However, when Zhao Jiangyuan urged his limitless sword, his mind was completely focused on Wang Lu, so he didn't notice the opponent's trick. That dog was also a different kind of spirit beast. Although its rank didn't seem to be high, it had sharp teeth. Unexpectedly, it bit through the sword intent wrapped around his wrist, and even injured his foundation establishment stage body. Was this model dog's rank really not over the limit? However, the more important issue was that, when the other side made his move, he was very confident. Obviously, the other side had already anticipated his move and was waiting for him to exhaust himself. However, not everyone in the 10,000 Arts sect knew about his identity as a sword cultivator, so how could the other side see through it? During this trip, Yuan Chaoyan and the other elders were watching over the group of disciples, so the spirit sword sect's elders wouldn't be able to see through their primordial spirit. Thus, Zhao Jiangyuan was confident that his identity as a sword cultivator and his method were very well hidden, so he absolutely didn't reveal any flaw. After all, Wang Lu naturally wouldn't tell him that although he hid his identity so well that even the elders of the Lingjin school couldn't see through it, a certain chef was able to see through it at a glance. At that time he very lightly said to Wang Lu with a smile, "Look, there's a sword cultivator over there." Therefore, Zhao Jiangyuan's biggest card was ineffective from the very beginning. As for the thunderous blow that he was confident in, it was even more impossible for it to succeed. However, even though his blow failed, Zhao Jiangyuan wasn't discouraged. Instead, he took half a step forward and spread his limitless sword intent, which locked Wang Lu even more tightly. "Hey, is limitless sword that great? Come closer, because the closer you think you can see, the less you can see." With that, Wang Lu slowly brandished the sword of Mount Kuan, urged his non-phase sword intent, and drew out an indestructible 3-foot sword defense. In Zhao Jiangyuan's eyes, he also saw a sturdy fortress slowly taking shape. Finally, it gradually became perfect and all the flaws were hidden. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, it would be really hard to imagine that a little cultivator at the upper level of qi cultivating could actually have such a strong defense. Zhao Jiangyuan's heart became heavier and heavier. His first sword strike that he was determined to win was broken by the opponent's clever trick. Judging from his current performance, he didn't suffer any injury at all. On the contrary, because his full-strength sword strike was intercepted, his magical power backlash was not light, and he could no longer maintain his peak power output. Right now, Wang Lu's defense had been completed, and he also had an unfathomable spirit pet. Although he still had the confidence to break through his defense, it would not be a short period of time. Thus, his plan to end the fight quickly had failed. And once it was dragged into a protracted fight, it would be in line with the worst-case scenario that his senior brother mentioned before the fight, which would leave the opponent with too many opportunities to take advantage of. Therefore, I have to pretend that nothing happened just now, and use my beheading sword again. Zhao Jiangyuan smiled self-deprecatingly. His sword moved to his left hand, and his right hand was wrapped in the white mist that he just spat out to repair his injury. At the same time, his mind once again locked on the opponent. Inside his jade mansion, the limitless sword heart began to spin rapidly, looking for flaws in that impregnable sword defense. Can't find it? It doesn't matter, I'll just hit it out. Even if there were many unfavorable factors, how could there be a sword cultivator in the 10,000 Immortals sect who was afraid to fight? The second sword strike followed in anger. This sword strike was even more cunning and fierce. Now that Zhao Jiangyuan was on guard, it was impossible for him to use the dog bite tactic again. The stupid dog anxiously paced around on the ground, but it could no longer find the opportunity to cut into the limitless sword heart. Bah! With a muffled sound, the non-phase sword and the limitless sword collided head-on. Suddenly, the cloud on the cloud tread rooftop set off an astonishing shockwave. After that sword strike, Wang Lu's smile was still there, but his wrist that was holding the sword was trembling. Zhao Jiangyuan's brows wrinkled as he incredulously looked at the limitless sword that was shaken back. With the cultivation of a low-level foundation establishment cultivator, a sword strike that was channeled with all his might was actually blocked. Indeed, the limitless sword was not known for its pure power, but it was still an immortal-level sword art, so its destructive power was extraordinary. How could a mere high-level qi cultivating stage cultivator actually block it? This was not the case of a righteous sect's disciple crushing a low-level rogue cultivator. Both sides were elites of the 5 uniques, so the gap between them was like a natural moat. However, this insurmountable gap was actually leveled by the simple and heavy sword of Mount Kuan. How strong was the defensive power of this non-phase method? Without much time to think, Zhao Jiangyuan's footsteps staggered, and the third sword strike was as smooth as flowing water. Wang Lu raised his sword to meet it, not falling into the slightest bit of disadvantage. On the cloud platform, a series of banging sounds were heard. In an instant, the two swords had collided dozens of times. The limitless sword's momentum gradually became as dense as a net, which enveloped Wang Lu and attacked from all directions. However, Wang Lu's sword defense didn't yield in the slightest. It firmly defended the 3-foot space. A moment later, the thousands of sword strikes gradually stopped. Zhao Jiangyuan, with a strange look on his face, took a step back. Then he saw Wang Lu violently coughed out a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as paper, indicating that he had suffered an internal injury. Under the cloud platform, the Spirit Sword sect disciples stared in disbelief. The several people from the 10,000 Arts sect breathed a long sigh of relief. This kind of tortoise-shell-like sword defense, as long as the first part was broken, it would be full of flaws. To be able to withstand the limitless sword for so long, as a high-level qi cultivating stage cultivator, Wang Lu could already be said to be against the heaven. However, in the end he was defeated. However, at this time on the cloud platform, Zhao Jiangyuan's complexion turned bitter. He also spurted out a mouthful of blood, which clearly contained fragments of internal organs. What kind of sword is this? Zhao Jiangyuan's voice was hoarse, and when he opened his mouth, there was a bloody smell. However, it was difficult to suppress the puzzlement in his heart. Wang Lu also smiled with great difficulty. Blade armor. Chapter 159. Listen, the non-phase method that we cultivate is one of the best self-cultivation methods in the world. The most important thing is to stand aloof from worldly affairs. Stop talking nonsense. If you have no attack power, then just say that you have no attack power. In any case, I will laugh at you. There is no truly perfect method in this world. Non-phase method has reached the extreme in defense, so the lack of attack power is understandable. However, in the face of some special situations, blindly living without purpose is not advisable. Therefore, there is actually a way to attack. I know mouth cannon. Using the most vicious swear words in the world to insult the opponent, and then using a turtle shell defense to make the opponent helpless. In this way, the opponent can suffer a fate worse than death. This is one of the best combination in the world. If you really don't want to learn it, then forget it. I'm going back to sleep. Master, what are you talking about? Since you are so sincere in asking me, I can reluctantly learn it. A few days ago, such a dialogue happened on the non-phase peak. After that, Wang Wu officially taught her disciple the swordsmanship that she regarded as her trump card. Non-phase method lacks the ability to erupt and release magical power. Therefore, if you want to hurt the enemy, you have to pay them back in their own coin. It's impossible to be that convenient. The other party is not stupid. It's impossible for them to watch you use their own spell to attack you. However, with the method of resonance, it's not difficult to injure the enemy by 800, but to injure oneself by 1000. After explaining the principle, Wang Wu personally demonstrated this sort of resonance. When the opponent's attack reached the body, using the non-phase sword bone as the core, it resonated with the opponent's attack force, and then transmitted the vibration back through the non-phase sword art. Although the initiative to provoke resonance would increase the damage to oneself at the same time, it could also return all the damage to oneself. It was indeed injuring the enemy by 800 but injuring oneself by 1000. It was also a seemingly absurd and unruly swordsmanship, but it could also be called a divine skill. Because for a non-phase method cultivator who emphasized on defense and survival, they were not afraid of this kind of blood exchange. In other words, they were eager to lose a bit more blood. In Wang Lu's view, this was like a meat shield getting a blade in armor. Henceforth he would be free and unfettered. Master, what is the name of this overbearing swordsmanship? His master frowned and thought for a moment. Nameless sword art. Oh, incompetence in naming is the characteristic of our Lingjian school. Don't look at me like you're looking at an illiterate person. It's like, you see, Spirit Sword Mountain has 12 peaks. In fact, stellar, non-phase, brilliant, and so on were once the main peaks of Spirit Sword Mountain, where the sect leader once lived. And at that time Lingjian School was not called Lingjian School. What should I call it then? Whatever peak the headmaster lives in is the name of the school. That's why it was called Star Sword School, Illumination Sword School, Misty Sword School. Later on, when it came to our generation, we felt that it wasn't a good idea to change the name of the school, and it was too troublesome to rename it again, so we simply changed it to Lingjian School. With spirits and swords, what more could we ask for? You see, this is a tradition. Wang Lu inwardly thought, it seems like there's a reason why non-phase method has such a vulgar name, because this illiterate person was assigned to the non-phase peak, so her method became non-phase method. Well, it doesn't matter if this counterattack sword has a name or not, what really matters is its actual combat effect. Now it seemed like the actual combat effect was simply excellent. Wang Lu's time to practice this sword was limited. In just a short 3 days he only had a glimpse of it. Therefore Wang Lu didn't dare to use his nameless sword to block Zhao Jiangyuan's first move, the Thunderbolt sword. When Zhao Jiangyuan fell into the trap and was injured, Wang Lu didn't have enough strength and was anxious to succeed. Only then did Wang Lu gradually unfolded the nameless sword, returning the injury bit by bit. In general, Wang Lu's injury was far heavier than Zhao Jiangyuan's. However, with his non-phase sword bone foundation he was able to withstand it much better than Zhao Jiangyuan. After this exchange, it was Zhao Jiangyuan who couldn't bear it and stopped using his limitless sword. Your Excellency's swordsmanship is brilliant, I'm ashamed of my inferiority. Forcefully suppressing his jade mansion that was about to fall apart and restraining the hot blood that gushed up his throat, Zhao Jiangyuan's complexion alternated between green and white. He reluctantly opened his mouth to admit defeat. If he continued to fight, he would hurt his foundation. If his jade mansion really collapsed, even if the 10,000 Arts sect had thousands of healing methods, it would still be troublesome. Although Zhao Jiangyuan was a sword cultivator, he was not a madman. In this regard, Wang Lu very generously replied with a smile, "You're too polite, haha, vomit, vomit, vomit." The blood that he vomited was simply a mess. Then Wang Lu simply fell into a pool of blood and kept on groaning. Your father can't take it anymore. Without 300,000 to 500,000 spirit stones for medicine, I'm afraid I can't be cured. If the sect doesn't reimburse me at public expense, I will have to occupy 99% of the spirit pool peak. By the way, where is the beautiful nurse? Zhao Jiangyuan, who had just walked down the stage to maintain the loser's demeanor, could no longer bear it. He spurted out a mouthful of black blood and then fell unconscious. The highly anticipated third match ended with the victory of Lingjian School. This result was really beyond the expectation of many people. Although many people had speculated that Wang Lu could win before the match, few people could have guessed that Wang Lu would actually win the match with his real ability. Especially the tragic fight where he exchanged injury for injury, which was even more shocking. And he, a high-level chi cultivating stage cultivator, actually had a physique that was far better than that of a sword cultivator who had crossed the threshold of foundation establishment. The body-forging effect of this non-phase method was simply unimaginable. When the elders of the two sects commented after the match, they also sighed with emotion about this match. Wang Lu has given us a wonderful performance in a fight where the weak wins the strong. Whether it's the preparation before the fight, the adaptability during the fight, or the desire to survive, he has shown a very high standard. Of course, Zhao Jiangyuan's performance is also very wonderful. This defeat is more or less due to the lack of luck. Yuan Chaoyun's comment was not polite. Zhao Jiangyuan lost in the choice of tactics. He was too afraid of the opponent playing tricks, so before the fight started, he lost his rational mentality and was anxious for quick results. Otherwise, he could have used his advantage in speed to engage in guerrilla warfare, and his victory should have been within reach. In this regard, Zhan Zai and Hai Yunfan, who drafted the tactics, were even more ashamed. They had considered all aspects, but they didn't consider that Wang Lu would actually accept the challenge in an upright manner. For the 10,000 Arts sect who were good at pre-fight analysis, this was undoubtedly a great mistake which could even be called a shame. However, even the defeated Zhao Jiangyuan couldn't blame his big brother and junior brother. After all, the opponent was Wang Lu. Without personally standing on the stage to face him, it was difficult to understand the heart-palpitating pressure. Never knowing his next step, never guessing his cards. Obviously, his cultivation base was not high, but it was like an insurmountable mountain, depressing, irritating, and irrational. Not long ago, when he besieged Wang Lu with his limitless sword net, he was counterattacked by Wang Lu's nameless sword, causing his injury to rapidly accumulate. During this period, how could Zhao Jiangyuan not realize it? He was so eager to win that he couldn't care so much. This time, I wholeheartedly accept my loss. However, senior sister, you must avenge me. The nearby second sister, Yi Feifei, nodded and said, "Don't worry, after watching the fight just now, I already know how to deal with him." Zhao Jiangyuan reminded her, "Don't be careless, senior sister. His defensive ability is really strong. Moreover, rest assured I won't fight him recklessly." Yi Feifei smiled. Her smile was brimming with confidence, which dispelled Zhao Jiangyuan's concerns. Although her brilliance was overshadowed by big brother Zhan Zai, she was, after all, a rare immortal cultivation genius of the 10,000 Arts sect. Moreover, objectively speaking, her fighting style should be able to perfectly restrain Wang Lu. It could even be said that in the fight against an opponent like Wang Lu, senior sister's odds of winning should be higher than big brother's. Senior sister, come on. On the other side, after the end of the battle, Wang Lu fell into a strange dream. In his impression, he only remembered that after he was seriously injured, he was carried off the stage. In order to recover faster, he chose to be in a coma. Before his consciousness disappeared, he was still sighing with emotion about the sharpness of the nameless sword. After that, he fell into a fog-like illusion. Fragments of sound and light appeared in his mind in fragments, obscured by the dense fog. He could only vaguely make out that he was in a barren land. At the same time, there was a strong smell of blood that stimulated his five senses. Some people's roars came to his ears, but they were in a language that he couldn't understand. After that, there was an overwhelming pain, both pain and heartache. That kind of torture was worse than death. It was thousands of times worse than the pain that Wang Lu suffered on the cloud platform. So much so that even though he knew that he was in an illusion, Wang Lu still couldn't control himself. The great pain violently compressed him like a spring. It was like there was an extra layer of solid shell around him, airtight. However, under the pressure there was a boiling resistance force. In the illusion, Wang Lu seemed to see lava and thunder, but he was still bound in the hard shell and couldn't break out. Finally, when this force accumulated to the extreme, although it still couldn't break through the hard shell, it shook the whole shell and the world inside. This shake woke Wang Lu up. "Hey, you're still alive." It was his master's voice. "You slept very freely. But if you want to sleep again, you'd better go back to sleep. The stall has been closed. Wang Lu frowned slightly and asked, Master, I think I saw something just now. Tut, I exposed myself? No way. Unfortunately, before Wang Lu could tell what happened in the illusion, he was interrupted by his master. Your loyal dog, the damn fatty, lost. Wang Lu was shocked. He stood up and asked, No way? I clearly gave him the brocade pouch. His master held a pot of sunflower-like strange flower. Look at it yourself. That pot of strange flower was infused with magical power. Its leaves unfolded, and the flower's stamen reflected the record of the fourth fight on the cloud platform when Wang Lu was unconscious. While ridiculing, Wang Lu seriously watched the video. Poor guy doesn't even have the money to buy a video? The two sides were the number 2 figure of the 10,000 Arts sect, Yi Feifei, and the dead fatty Wen Bao from the Lingjian school. This fight could be said to be the most disparity in strength between the two sides. From the start, there wasn't much suspense. Although after defeating Zhu Qin, Wen Bao proved that his strength was not weak, but in front of the number 2 figure of the 10,000 Arts sect, he still couldn't talk about winning. Yi Feifei's characteristics were nimble, patient, and cautious. Coupled with her foundation establishment stage magical power, she perfectly restrained Wen Bao's bravery. When he went on stage, Wen Bao didn't even dare to think about winning. Only Wang Lu had high expectations for the dead fatty. However, after the start of the competition, Wen Bao quickly brought everyone a pleasant surprise. In the face of Yi Feifei's agile and nimble body technique, and the illusory technique that was hard to distinguish between real and fake, Wen Bao's choice was to charge forward like a pig, charge 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 like a pig. That crazy, plow-like assault forced Yi Feifei into a rather awkward situation. Because her next opponent was Wang Lu, she didn't want to expose too many of her trump cards in advance. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to bring out her true abilities. She originally thought that this kind of brainless and ferocious character should be very easy to deal with. Although Wen Bao's offensive was fierce, his flaws were astonishingly large. In front of a Zhuji stage cultivator, his shield of upstanding qi alone was not enough. However, at this time, Wen Bao's entire body was shrouded in a layer of mournful blood color, and his resistance skyrocketed. Yi Feifei continuously tried to probe with her spells, but it was completely ineffective. On the other hand, the wind created by Wen Bao's sword grew increasingly ferocious. Sometimes, with a swing of his sword, the wind created by the sword would wreak havoc through a radius of tens of meters, causing the cultivators below to gape. Was this guy really at the qi condensation stage? Yi Feifei was also very surprised. She originally planned to defeat her opponent at the very least, so as not to expose her trump card too early. However, if she continued to fight like this, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to hide her trump card. Therefore, she very decisively used her trump card. Flying. Flying was the dream of countless mortals. People yearned for the flying sword of cultivators. However, for cultivators, flying was only really popularized after the Shudan stage. The simplest flying spell could be released by qi condensation stage cultivators. However, flying in the air was slow and clumsy, and there was no place to borrow strength. It was simply a live target that flew into the sky. It had no actual combat value. Only when one's magical power reached the Shudan stage could one freely move in the air and have the ability to fly at high altitudes. Only then could this move be used in actual combat. However, Yi Feifei, with her low-level Zhuji stage cultivation base, soared into the sky and gracefully danced in the air. In the blink of an eye, she left behind more than 10 afterimages. She was so fast that it was dazzling. Before people could sigh with emotion at Yi Feifei's strength as the second trump card, Wen Bao fiercely waved his giant sword, setting off a raging tornado of sword qi, which completely destroyed all the afterimages left by Yi Feifei. Her real body was only able to survive by relying on a shield of dancing wind. The wind stopped and there was dead silence in the field. This is impossible. After witnessing this spectacle, many people roared in their hearts. No matter how good Wen Bao was at attacking with his high-level qi condensation stage cultivation base, it was absolutely impossible for him to create such an amazing sword wind. How did you do it? The brocade pouch. What's inside the brocade pouch? The original smell left by a noble and elegant lady. Even the non-phase peak master, who had always been known for her moral integrity, felt deep admiration. Unfortunately, the brocade pouch is the reason for his success, and the brocade pouch is also the reason for his failure. The woman in white shook her head and motioned Wang Lu to continue watching. The rest of the match was not long, only a few seconds. When Wen Bao thought that he could win against the heaven, he once again opened the brocade pouch, trying to gain power from the original smell. A fountain of blood gushed out from his nose. Wen Bao swayed a few times and then fell to the ground. Wang Lu was also stunned for a long time. This good-for-nothing virgin. Chapter 160. Wen Bao's defeat made people sigh with emotion. When no one was optimistic about him, he bravely chose to go into battle. Unexpectedly, he fought in a domineering manner, but unexpectedly, he spurted out blood and was defeated. He was a mysterious dark horse. Of course, except for a few elders with amazing eyesight, most people couldn't see the mystery behind it. What kind of power Wen Bao obtained from the brocade pouch had become a delightful gossip. Some people said that he had taken a forbidden drug, some people said that he was just deliberately mystifying. In fact, the dead fatty was originally very powerful. Some people said that the brocade pouch was a newly developed magical treasure from Lingjian school, which had the ability to store magical powers. Of course, for the contestants from the two sects, no matter how amazing Wen Bao's performance was, it was just a thing of the past. No matter how many mysteries were hidden in his body, as a loser, he had lost his attractiveness. What was really worth paying attention to were the 4 cultivators who had defeated their opponents and advanced to the next round of the competition. After the first 4 rounds, both sides had more or less exposed their cards and weaknesses. Zhang Zai's Thunder Body, Lu Li's Water and Fire Dual Swords, Wang Lu's Counter-Injury Nameless Sword, and Yi Feifei's Imperial Sky Technique. The second round of the competition was set for the next day. The contestants had 1 day to restore their magical power, heal their injuries, and deduce and arrange their tactics according to the new information. Among them, except for Wang Lu, the other 3 victors almost all advanced to the next round without any damage, so they didn't need to restore anything. However, Wang Lu's situation was more worrying. On the field, although he beautifully defeated a powerful opponent, his own injury was not light. Many people speculated that Spirit Sword Sect substitute Yu Xinyao would likely have to put on her armor and go on the field. However, for the person involved, this speculation was nonsense. What a joke. Let little you replace me? Isn't that pushing the little girl into the fire pit? With her 3-legged cat's kung fu, it would be strange if Yi Feifei didn't beat her out of her body. Senior brother, although I am very grateful for your consideration for me, what you said is I'm sorry I'm too frank. But forget about replacing me. This time the opponent is very strong. Except for me and Lu Li, the others have no chance of winning if they don't rely on brocade sacks. And as for brocade sacks, there's no suitable brocade sacks for you. Wang Lu was lying in his bedroom on the non-phase peak, facing Yu Xinyao who came to visit. He comforted her. This kind of injury is nothing. I don't know how many times I've experienced more serious injuries in the savage land. It won't hurt my muscles or bones at all. I just need to take some medicine and sleep, and I'll be fully recovered by tomorrow morning. Yu Xinyao was still somewhat worried. But this precious pre-war preparation time will be wasted in vain. Wang Lu smiled. Why do we need to prepare to deal with Yi Feifei? If Zhang Zai and Lu Li are his opponents, he indeed needs to prepare. Yi Feifei is not qualified enough. Senior brother, aren't you being too careless? In front of the sickbed, the simple and honest original flavor warrior Wen Bao said, Yi Feifei is actually very powerful. Because Yu Xinyao was sitting next to him, the fatty was obviously a bit uncomfortable. He was especially worried that she would know the truth about the brocade sacks. Even though he was just sitting there, he was already sweating profusely. However, he still insisted on explaining his combat experience to Wang Lu in full detail. Although Yi Feifei has already revealed her trump card, her strength is not just that. I know her spell should be very strong. Although your protective aura shield has been immune to her several rounds of probing, that's only because she hasn't used her finishing move yet. In any case, she's the second in the younger generation of the 10,000 Arts sect, so her attack power can't possibly be so weak. Wen Bao said, yes, she has speed and attack power. For you, senior brother, it should be very difficult. Difficult? Wang Lu made an incredulous expression. Why would it be difficult? Because, senior brother, don't you only have the ability to counterattack when facing a melee opponent? Although it was embarrassing to say it out loud, even Wen Bao could see that Wang Lu's counterattack ability was ineffective against a long-range attack. Zhao Jiangyuan lost because he was eager to win. If he had kept the distance and bombarded Wang Lu with spells, then Wang Lu would simply be a sandbag. But Yi Feifei was undoubtedly a master of long-range bombardment. She simply wouldn't fight in close combat. Wang Lu sneered. Mortal's wisdom. Since I know that there's no chance of winning by keeping the distance, I naturally have to find a way to catch her. Wen Bao was stunned. How to catch her? Spells are definitely not going to work. The opponent is from the 10,000 Arts sect, or should I rely on Lao AI? But Lao AI can't fly. Wang Lu said, if you don't have enough IQ, don't think about this complicated problem. I have my own solution. If you guys really want to help me with my plan, you might as well analyze Lu Li. What? In front of the sickbed, the several senior and junior brothers who came to visit were taken aback. This senior brother Wang Lu was too ambitious. He hasn't even won the semi-final, but he has already begun to prepare for the final. Moreover, how could he be sure that the winner would be Lu Li? Nonsense, of course, it's because I'll help her. In any case, we're from the same sect. Even if there's a competitive relationship, how could I not help when we're facing a common enemy? This remark simply refreshed a lot of people's worldview. Especially the several outer court disciples who didn't know much about Wang Lu. They were so surprised that their jaws dropped. Among them, a junior sister who came with Yu Xinyao softly asked her senior sister Wen Yin, Senior sister, didn't you say that there are no good people on the non-phase peak? Wen Yin was very embarrassed. Everyone actually has a lot of misunderstandings about the non-phase peak. On the other side, Wang Lu had already talked about Lu Li's problem in depth. At present, in a head-on confrontation, no one can defeat Lu Li. Even my anti-injury swordsmanship can't withstand her brilliant sword heart. Therefore, if you want to win, you must use some tricks. You should have more contact with Lu Li than me. Tell me the details of her life. I want to see if there's anything that can be used. For example, where does she usually eat? What's her usual taste? The junior sister who was whispering with Wen Yin just now, my Yun Wan, couldn't help but ask, Senior brother Wang Lu, do you want to poison senior sister Lu Li by asking this? Nonsense, otherwise why would I make her a midnight snack? Junior sister Yun Wan couldn't believe her ears. Who could talk about conspiracies in such a dignified and righteous manner? Wang Lu also said, in addition, what kind of books does she like to read? What kind of music does she like to listen to? Alright, has she ever been in love? Wang Lu asked several questions in a row. Unfortunately, because the answers just now were too straightforward, for a while no one responded. You don't know this and you don't know that either. You guys are too insincere in visiting a patient. Wang Lu sighed with emotion. But it doesn't matter, you can also pay. Not long after, the people in the room had all left. For the people of the 10,000 Arts sect, this was a sleepless night. Although after a round of fighting, both Zhan Zai and Yi Feifei were somewhat exhausted, at this time, it was more important to analyze the next opponent. According to the arrangement of the elders of the two sects, the next day would be the fight between Wang Lu and Yi Feifei, followed by Zhan Zai and Lu Li. After witnessing Lu Li's fire and water double swords, Zhan Zai returned to the cloud wave boat and went into closed-door training, thinking hard about countermeasures to improve his odds of winning. Meanwhile, Yi Feifei and several junior brothers and sisters were in the pink house of the Spirit Pool Peak, discussing countermeasures together. Unlike Zhan Zai's situation, the real strength of Yi Feifei's opponent didn't lie in his own strength, but rather in his endless plots and tricks. Even a small part of Zhao Jiangyuan's defeat could be attributed to the opponent's ability to grasp people's mind. When everyone thought that Wang Lu would use a dirty trick to win, he suddenly acted upright, which in itself could be considered as a dirty trick. For such an opponent, closed-door training was meaningless. It was better to use the power of others to think about how to guard against the opponent's tricks and tricks. Little Hai, you've been with Wang Lu the most, do you have any idea? Senior sister, you think too highly of me. Against Wang Lu, I'm also helpless. Hai Yunfan wryly smiled. Remembering his conversation with Wang Lu not long ago, his heart palpitated even more. However, what should be said must be said. Actually, to deal with Wang Lu, it's not that difficult. In the end, in a fight, strength is the most important. In the previous 4 rounds of battle, he made a total of 3 moves. There are still traces to follow. Although the other disciples were called to the room by Yi Feifei, they actually didn't have any ideas, and at this time, they all became an audience. In the 3 moves, he targeted the weaknesses of people's minds. Eldest senior brother is too inexperienced in the matters between men and women, third senior brother is too afraid of his off-the-field tricks, and lost his impatience, and Wen Bao, presumably, was stimulated by Wang Lu's mind tricks. Actually, thinking from another angle, this matter isn't difficult to analyze. With Master and the others present, there aren't many moves that Wang Lu can use. Can he poison? Can he swallow forbidden drugs? Can he play tricks on the field? So what he can do is only to attack the mind. Hai Yunfan's reasoning was very simple, but when Yi Feifei and the others heard it, they felt suddenly enlightened. If you put it like this, Wang Lu actually isn't that scary. At least in this competition between the two sects, he doesn't have too many opportunities to display his skills, so. Senior sister, in fact, as long as you grasp your own rhythm and don't make any dizzy moves, you will definitely win. Hai Yunfan said, smiling in isolation. Although senior brother Zhao lost, at least he forced out his trump card, that suicidal sword move. The conditions are very strict, right? Zhao Jiangyuan said with annoyance. Now that I think about it, that vibration power came from the place where the two swords met. It can only be used in close combat. If I had opened the distance earlier and released the flying sword to attack the enemy, at least I would have been in a position where I wouldn't have been defeated. Hai Yunfan said, Senior sister, you are the best at long-range fighting. If the distance is long enough, even eldest senior brother can't catch up to you. Yi Feifei laughed in spite of herself. How can I be compared with eldest senior brother? Once his annihilation thunder came out, I simply have no room to resist. But if, as you said, Wang Lu doesn't have the ability to resist long range, then there's nothing to be afraid of. Hai Yunfan said, but we still have to be careful. Next, let's try to deduce the non-phase method. Senior brother Zhao has fought against him, so he should have obtained a lot of valuable first-hand information. Zhao Jiangyuan nodded. Yes, although I dare not say that I have the essence, but I do have a little bit of the knack. First of all, amidst the active discussion of the crowd, the rhythm of the battle preparation became more and more intense. Chapter 161. The highly anticipated semi-final began on time the next morning. The first one was the fight between Wang Lu and Yi Feifei, which was also known as the showdown between the number 2 figures of the two sections. There was no doubt that Yi Feifei was ranked second among the 5 people of the 10,000 Arts sect. However, Wang Lu was quite dissatisfied with the fact that he was ranked below Lu Li. Ridiculous as a successor disciple, isn't it just that my cultivation base is lower than hers? I entered the sect later than her, I'm younger than her, and my reputation is worse than hers? Why should I tacitly agree that she's the lead disciple? I think you've listed the reasons very clearly, haven't you? Nevertheless, in Wang Lu's view, it was obvious that only he had the qualification to be the lead disciple. Even Zhu Shiyao, who had cultivated for more than 10 years and thus couldn't participate in the competition, was not qualified to take away the lead disciple position from his hands. There's no other way. Since everyone doesn't recognize me, then I'll fight until everyone recognizes me. Congratulations, sister-in-law, you will become an important stepping stone on my way to the lead disciple position. Standing at the other end of the platform, Yi Feifei was very puzzled. What's with that sister-in-law address? Is it some kind of provocative statement? At the same time, under the platform, Hai Yunfan's heart almost jumped out of his chest, thinking, Boss, don't play me like this. Wang Lu, I've seen through you. Yi Feifei was full of confidence. She looked straight at her opponent with awe-inspiring eyes. You have no chance. Wang Lu looked at Yi Feifei, especially at her pair of eyes that were full of confidence. He then laughed in spite of himself. I really thought you've seen through me. Sure enough, it's just a bluff. Yi Feifei sneered. Whether it's a bluff or not, who's the bluff, we'll know when the fight begins. Wang Lu casually responded with a sound and then whistled. The model dog Huawei cheerfully jumped onto the platform and jumped around Wang Lu's feet. TSK still the same old trick. Below the stage, Zhao Jiangyuan looked at the broken dog with some resentment. His wrist was still faintly aching. That dog's teeth were sharp and its mouth was quite marvelous. Yesterday, when he was bitten on the wrist, not only was the pain piercing into his heart, it caused his magic power to stagnate, and the wound did not heal throughout the entire battle. Even after his master's treatment, the recovery was still very slow. But to release the dog to bite someone, he could only rely on the element of surprise. Apart from its sharp teeth, the dog had no other strong points. Not only was it weak, it wasn't fast, and it didn't have any special abilities such as invisibility and transformation. Once someone was on guard, it wouldn't pose a threat at all. As for shapeshifting, it was a special move that could only be used once. This time Wang Lu brought out this stupid dog again. It could be seen that he was at his wit's end. Thinking to this, Zhao Jiangyuan's heart was a bit more comfortable. Although he lost, he could let his senior sister win easily, so it could be considered as a worthwhile loss. It would be best if his big brother could defeat Lu Li in the afternoon, and then in the final match with his senior sister, he could ruthlessly slap the Lingjian school's face. Let them know that their insignificant skills were not worth mentioning, and that the prosperity of a sect depended on strength, not conspiracy. Senior sister, come on. Zhao Jiangyuan led Lu Chenkai and Hai Yunfan to actively encourage Yi Feifei. Unfortunately, his big brother was still in closed-door training to deal with the afternoon match. Otherwise, if he could pull him along to cheer for his senior sister, she would definitely be extremely moved, and then her fighting strength would skyrocket. However, after cheering for a while, Zhao Jiangyuan suddenly found that his senior sister's eyes were a bit strange. They seemed to be wandering. Although the match had not yet started, the warm-up before the match was very important. She should release some necessary spells to adjust her primordial spirit and body so that she could quickly enter the fighting state. At this time, his senior sister should seriously lock on Wang Lu's every move, and not look at Wang Lu for a while and then look at the modeled dog for a while. That's strange. Why does senior sister look so uneasy? Did she lose her chi while channeling? It can't be. Yeah, senior sister has always been the most patient. Even big brother can't compare to her in this aspect. Why does she feel a little guilty now? The more Zhao Jiangyuan and Lu Chenkai looked at her, the more strange it became, but they couldn't see through it, so they could only shake their heads and continue to cheer for her. At this time, the elders of both sides had finished checking the conditions of Wang Lu and Yi Feifei. After confirming that there were no problems, they only needed to announce the start of the match. Oh no. A light flashed in Hai Yunfan's mind, and he realized that there was a great danger here. Unfortunately, it was too late to remind him. The match had officially started. The cloud platform rose high, separating it from the audience. This was also a lesson learned from the first round. At that time, when Zhang Zai was fighting against Yu Yun, he was about to win, but Wang Lu's voice stirred up the waves and he almost lost. Since then, Lingjian School didn't need to be reminded by the opponent to make a timely patch. Now on the cloud platform, although the audience could still clearly see the situation in the arena, they couldn't exert any influence, even their cheers couldn't be heard. It was an absolutely fair and isolated competition venue. At the start of the battle, Yi Feifei didn't hold back and immediately used the Imperial Sky technique to soar into the sky. This flight caused a burst of exclamations, because Yi Feifei's movements were obviously much faster than yesterday. In the battle with Wen Bao, she really didn't use her true skills. But facing Wang Lu, she didn't care about hiding any of her trump cards. A pillar of fire that pierced through the sky, as Yi Feifei's first spell, officially opened the curtains of the battle. Using a low-level foundation establishment cultivation to control the heavenly fire, Yi Feifei proved her strength as the number 2 trump card in the beginning. And Wang Lu used the sword of Mount Kuan to create a sword defense to dissipate the pillar of fire, proving his heaven-defying defensive power. But after this attack, Yi Feifei felt at ease, because the heavenly fire was only dispersed, the firepower wasn't counterattacked. As expected, Wang Lu's counterattack ability was only limited to close combat. Since it's like this, as long as she keeps her distance, he's just a thick sandbag, no threat at all. Next, as long as she doesn't fall into his trap, no matter what, she'll at least be in an invincible position. Also, although Wang Lu's defensive ability is strong, but according to the deductions of her juniors, it's not completely flawless. His super strong defensive ability is actually not perfect. A large portion of the damage is absorbed by his body, so it looks like his defensive ability far exceeds the average level. But there's a huge flaw here. Once the opponent's attack exceeds the limit of his defensive ability, this seemingly perfect defensive system will immediately collapse. Other cultivators will only be injured when their defense is broken, but if it's Wang Lu, it's very likely that he'll be seriously injured and on the verge of death, losing on the spot. And Yi Feifei, in fact, is most proficient in this kind of battle. Although she is a woman, her magical power is vigorous, and her ability to fight a protracted battle is not inferior to Zhang Zai's. If this stalemate must continue, she doesn't think that the high-level chi cultivating stage Wang Lu can last longer than her. However, Wang Lu didn't intend to honestly fight with Yi Feifei. After blocking the first heavenly fire, Wang Lu did something that made Yi Feifei dumbfounded. He stretched out his hand, picked up the stupid dog at his feet, and fiercely threw it up. The stupid dog bared its fangs and brandished its claws in the air. Its face was ferocious, and its mouth was shining with a cold light. Unfortunately, Wang Lu's aim was not good, and the stupid dog and Yi Feifei brushed past each other. Then there was only a muffled sound and the stupid dog fell back onto the cloud platform. It was shaken to the point of confusion, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of its mouth. It couldn't get up for a long time. Wang Lu shook his head and slowly walked over. Without any pity he picked up the stupid dog again, and unexpectedly planned to throw it again. At this time Yi Feifei, who was in the sky, widened her eyes, and asked incredulously, "You, what are you doing?" Wang Lu laughed. "Counterattack. Relying on this move? What else can I do? Chant an incantation? The only attack I can use now is to release the dog to bite people, but you are flying so high, I have no other choice but to throw the stupid dog." Yi Feifei was so angry that her whole body trembled. You are simply inhumane." Wang Lu laughed. "It's okay, I still have my bestial nature." Then he threw the flying dog again. Unfortunately this time, its aim was still not good enough, and it once again missed Yi Feifei. However, Yi Feifei unexpectedly stretched out her hand and pointed at the stupid dog, and a thin mist condensed on its body. The mist wrapped around it and it gently fell to the ground so that it wouldn't get hurt. Wang Lu let out an "oh" sound. "So kind?" His eyes were full of ridicule. Yi Feifei was inwardly shocked, knowing that she had exposed her flaw. She quickly used her usual magical treasure, the red jade coral, to urge her magical power. However, the next moment the scene in front of her made her breath stagnate, and her magical power suddenly scattered, shaking her jade mansion. Wang Lu actually fiercely kicked his spirit pet. Moreover, it was aimed at the sensitive part of its mouth and nose, which made it bleed. "You." Wang Lu ignored Yi Feifei and coldly scolded his own dog. "Idiot, I gave you 2 chances, but you still can't bite the person, what's the use of you?" The stupid dog whimpered miserably. "Bark, you only know how to bark. If you have the ability, go bite that woman for me. Go." Wang Lu said and then ruthlessly kicked the dog. The stupid dog screamed and vomited blood. "Hee, just now, when that woman gave you the mist to slow down, her sympathy was overflowing. Unfortunately, in a battle, how could you be so sentimental? You've been in contact with her for a long time, haven't you? People always say that loyal dogs are loyal dogs, but you, this cheap thing, are actually a traitor." With that, he kicked the dog's throat, and the stupid dog's screams came to an abrupt stop. A moment later it spat out a lot of blood clots. On and off the stage there was a dead silence. Yi Feifei, who was in the air, only saw blood red, and her whole body uncontrollably trembled. You vicious slut. Go to hell." The next moment, under the stage, Hai Yun Fan anxiously said, "Senior sister, don't be fooled." Unfortunately, at this time, the Cloud Tread rooftop was already completely isolated from outside interference. Under extreme anger, Yi Feifei's right hand's index and ring fingers moved slightly, and used a spell. In a flash she appeared behind Wang Lu. Gale instant movement. This was Yi Feifei's trump card to save her life, but at this time she used it to attack the opponent and catch him off guard. Yi Feifei held the vermilion coral tightly in one hand, and heavenly fire boiled and turned, while her other hand reached down, preparing to save the severely injured and dying spirit pet. Although Yi Feifei moved in a hurry, she came prepared. The coral heavenly fire in her right hand was ready but not released, to prevent the counterattack from the sword technique. When her left hand reached down, she used her finger technique to form a contract-breaking seal. With just a little, she could break the weak contract relationship between Wang Lu and Tao Wu. Without the contract, the spiritual pet would be free, and would no longer be bullied by this evil master. However, just as her left hand was about to touch the spiritual pet, Yi Feifei clearly saw 2 cold smiles. Wang Lu and the model dog, the smile of one person and one pet was actually so similar. The next moment, her left hand was in severe pain. That model dog had viciously bitten her, and at this time Yi Feifei finally realized what her junior brother said about the unforgettable pain that could make one's vision go black. In an instant, even the Spirit Fog Sutra in her jade mansion could not withstand the impact, and with a cracking sound, cracks appeared. Yi Feifei's whole body's magical power trembled, and she almost lost control. However, how could Wang Lu just sit and watch his opponent recover from the pain and adjust her breathing? The sword of Mount Kuan, neither too fast nor too slow, was just right on the red jade coral. Oh no! The magical power in the red jade coral was ready to be released, but it was in a state that could erupt at any time. Stimulated by the sword of Mount Kuan, plus Yi Feifei's magical power was out of control, the heavenly fire suddenly overflowed, burning the sky and boiling the sea. And Wang Lu's blade armor also quietly opened. Chapter 162. Senior sister, are you okay? When she woke up, she saw the worried face of her junior brother, Hai Yin Fan. Yi Feifei somewhat weakly nodded and then stood up. Her injury was not heavy. Before the burning heaven fire could burn her head, it was suppressed by the supreme magical ability of the referee elder. Her jade mansion was just shaken and she suffered internal injuries. After adjusting her breath in the rest area for a while, she regained her consciousness. Then, ignoring the advice of her junior brothers and the elders, she strode toward the opposite side of the cloud platform, the rest area of the Lingjian school. Sure enough, Wang Lu was also there. While coughing up blood, he was teasing the dog with streaky pork. Seeing Yi Feifei's menacing attitude, the surrounding disciples tacitly gave way to Wang Lu and sold him out. Yo, isn't this the dog fan? A wrong dog lover, Yi Feifei? What do you want? Wang Lu's face was full of ridicule, which immediately made Yi Feifei angry. You've already planned this? Her heart was sullen, but her voice was cold. That's right. Yesterday when I brought the dog on stage, it caused all kinds of screams and you were one of them. I heard it clearly. At that time, I already planned how to deal with you. Wang Lu was particularly calm. He then picked up the stupid dog and shook it at Yi Feifei. Do you like it? Although it's a bit stupid. Yi Feifei said, the part about abusing the dog was also fake? Nonsense, this stupid thing has thick skin and thick flesh. Even if I wanted to abuse it, it wouldn't hurt. It's nothing more than feeding it several kilograms of blood tofu. Blood, shameless. Is better than being brainless. Wang Lu didn't care about the other side's accusation. A dignified foundation establishment cultivator can't even recognize blood tofu, yet you still have the nerve to say that you're good at calm and cautious fighting? Hearing this, Yi Feifei was ashamed and angry. She couldn't wait to immediately fight with Wang Lu again. However, in the end she suppressed her anger and calmed down. Wang Lu, you haven't really learned animal taming technique. Wang Lu used his leg to tease the stupid dog and said, of course I haven't learned it. I just casually exchanged a contract. Without the beast taming technique, the human and the pet will be separated. What use do you have for it? Wang Lu laughed and said, isn't it a little funny for a loser like you to ask this question? Humph, such a spirit pet falling into your hands is a complete waste. Yi Feifei said, you and it are not suitable. Hey, I feel like there's a lot of information in this line of yours that you can't wait to snatch away my love. Yi Feifei ignored Wang Lu's mockery and just coldly put forward her own request. I want to exchange your pet with intelligence. You name a price. 80 billion spirit stones. You? Yi Feifei heard the sky-high price and knew that the other party was not sincere at all. Your cultivation system is completely incompatible with the animal taming technique. Your Lingjian school also doesn't have the inheritance of animal taming technique. What do you want it for? And you don't like spiritual pets at all. Wang Lu said, and then? You want to say that you have the animal taming technique so you are more suitable to raise a pet? Yi Feifei said, yes, I am currently lacking a spiritual pet that can communicate with me and is good at close combats. Oh, then quickly prepare the 80 billion spirit stones. When you have enough, we can trade. Please show some sincerity. Why should I show sincerity? When have you ever seen those tall, rich and handsome men who indulge themselves in women sincerely give the women they're sick of *king to losers to ride on? Yi Feifei frowned. What nonsense are you talking about? Oh, then let me briefly explain. If you don't have money, then wash and sleep, child. While speaking, Wang Lu kicked the stupid dog. The stupid dog immediately bared its teeth and showed a fierce expression. Yi Feifei was disappointed. She knew that she had no chance at all, so she didn't say anything more and turned around to leave. However, when she was at the edge of the resting area, she couldn't help but say, Wang Lu, don't think that you can keep going by relying on tricks and intrigues. In the finals, I will teach you a lesson. Aha, teach me a lesson in the audience? Then let's wait and see. In the afternoon, the Cloud Tread rooftop was once again crowded with people. In many people's view, the semi-final between Lu Li and Zhan Zai was the real pinnacle showdown. Although Wang Lu's match was constantly unfolding from a cultivator's point of view, it was unavoidably too unconventional and not the right way. The ones who could truly represent the top level of the young disciples of the two five uniques were Lu Li and Zhan Zai. And for this pinnacle showdown, the two sects had already been preparing for it since yesterday. As if by prior agreement, the two parties simultaneously went into closed-door training, and other people from their sects had also done a lot of work. For example, creating public opinion and spreading a rumor. Before the start of the match, the news about the two contestants was overwhelming. No one knew from which channel it came. Some said that Zhang Zai's thunder body was just a cover, and his real trump card was still hidden. Some said that although Zhang Zai's cultivation base was high, the flaw in his temperament was too big, which made him easy to be taken advantage of. Some also said that Zhang Zai fell in love with Lu Li at first sight, so he was likely to be unable to go all out in the match. Of course, there was even more news about Lu Li. For example, Lu Li was simple-minded and likely to be deceived by people's crafty plots. Making a fuss on this point could be a small capital gain. Another example was that Lu Li was shocked by Zhang Zai's heroic appearance when he displayed his thunder body, and her heart was secretly in love with him. As long as Zhang Zai promptly confessed, there would be a great chance for him. Of course, the source of the latter news was very suspicious. Considering that there was a certain person who could use all kinds of psychological attack, the people of the 10,000 Arts sect strictly filtered the news, not letting Zhang Zai know about it. Otherwise, the 10,000 Arts sect's 10,000 motionless heart would likely collapse. At that time, the big brother of the 10,000 Arts sect would publicly confess his love to Lu Li on the arena, and then be publicly rejected, causing his mind to be in chaos. That would be a scandal that the sect could not wash off. Speaking of which, this time we are really embarrassed. No wonder there are elders in the sect who said that the 9 regions is so big that there are always people better than you. Even in a small sect, there might be crouching tigers and hidden dragons. This Lingjian school is not as vulnerable as what the Xingjing sect said. In the rest area, Lu Qiankai couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Zhao Jiangyuan resentfully said, "How could the Xingjing sect be so kind as to tell us the truth? It's just that this Lingjian school is indeed more powerful than we imagined. Not to mention Wang Lu, that weirdo Lu Li is really powerful. Moreover, Yu Yun, Wen Bao, although their cultivation base is not high, their basic skills are quite solid. Tisk, it's indeed a barbarian sect." Regarding his senior brother's ever-present sense of superiority, which was engraved in their bone marrow, Hai Yunfan could only smile wryly. Speaking of which, he himself felt strange. In his several years of cultivation in the 10,000 Arts sect, the sect treated him the same as the other senior brothers, so why didn't he have the arrogant mentality of the 10,000 Arts sect? No, perhaps in other sects he would be the same as his senior brothers, maintaining a high and aloof attitude. However, in the Spirit Sword Mountain, where there was a certain someone, it would be difficult for him to be arrogant. Hai Yunfan sighed. He knew that if this went on for a long time, when his cultivation base was higher in the future, perhaps it would lead to a heart demon. Therefore, although he really didn't want to be enemies with Brother Wang, who told the Lingjian school to not take him in. Thinking about this, Hai Yunfan decided to do something. "Senior brother, this is for you." Eldest brother Zhang Zai opened his eyes and curiously looked at the piece of white paper in Hai Yunfan's hand. There was a faint but profound immortal spirit aura on the paper, as well as a row of numbers and a few characters. "What's this?" Hai Yunfan smiled. "Nothing. Just now, I saw someone opening a gambling house under the Grand Cloud platform, so my hands were itchy, so I put some bets on senior brother's side." Zhang Zai narrowed his eyes. "Itchy hands and you dare to place such a heavy bet? 500,000 spirit stones is not a small number. It's a sure win bet, so it doesn't matter how heavy the bet is." Zhang Zai opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. After a while he sighed. "Junior brother." Hai Yunfan seemed to hear his senior brother's emotion, so he smiled. "Senior brother, you don't have to say anything, I believe you will win." "No, I want to say, since you know there's this kind of gambling house, why don't you call me to bet with you?" Hai Yunfan was stunned for a moment, but then he saw the teasing look in his senior brother's eyes. He couldn't help but laugh. "It turns out that senior brother has already won. Very well, in a moment I will call senior sister and the others to bet together and win a bit more." Zhang Zai nodded and no longer said anything. He closed his eyes again and slowly refined the immortal heart that suppressed the 5 thunders in his jade mansion. As his master said, the heart cultivation method in the immortal cultivation world couldn't make people's heart as calm as a lake. However, brilliant cultivators could ingeniously use the immortal heart to achieve the same effect. Right now, Zhang Zai's heart only had the thought of winning. In order to win, all other distracting thoughts could be abandoned. And this was the correct way to use the 5 thunders immortal heart. Seeing that his senior brother had completely entered the state, Hai Yunfan felt relieved. He secretly thought that he had underestimated his senior brother. Actually, he didn't need him to do anything. At this time, they suddenly heard a burst of exclamation from not far away. The crowd gathered around the black market merchant's place as if they had seen something incredible. Hai Yunfan's heart sank. He had an ominous premonition, so he quickly got up and walked over. 8 million spirit stones bet on Zhang Zai? These people are really bold. Several disciples of Spirit Sword sect were somewhat surprised, but they also looked in awe at the several cultivators in Chinese attire in front of the registration desk. Those cultivators were taciturn and indifferent, but their first move was actually earth-shattering. Hai Yunfan was inwardly surprised for a moment, but he immediately understood. These were the cultivators from other sects who came to watch the fight. The fight between the younger generation disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect and the Lingjian school might not be worthy of attention. However, if the lead disciple of the younger generation of the two sects competed, it would be enough to attract the attention of the Wanxian League. Although the Lingjian school was used to being low-key, this time the 10,000 Arts sect mainly wanted to be high-profile. Before entering the Blue River region, their cloud wave boat had been swaggering across several regions, as if they were afraid that other people wouldn't know that they went to Lingjian school to challenge them. However, as soon as they entered the Spirit Sword Mountain, they immediately quieted down, which made a lot of people curious. Could it be that this group of people's face-slapping was too fierce, so the Lingjian school made a dumpling out of them? When the two sects officially began the fight between the disciples, the applications from the various sects of the Wanxian League to watch the fight increased. Those middle and low-rank sects didn't dare to expect to enter the encampment of the 5 uniques, but the high-rank sects as well as the cultivators from the other 5 uniques couldn't help but be curious. Hai Yunfan observed for a moment and guessed that they should be cultivators from the 10,000 Arts sect. Only those cultivators from the first-rank sects would be so generous. Moreover, they also sold a good deal to the 10,000 Arts sect. The relationship between the 10,000 Arts sect and the 10,000 Arts sect had always been good. Sure enough, not long after, not far away, they saw an elder from the Lingjian school, who then revealed the identity of the other party. They were indeed the elders sent by the 10,000 Arts sect to watch the fight. Facing the elders from the Lingjian school, they were courteous and considerate, but their attitude was neither cold nor warm. Their 8 million spirit stones bet on Zhang Zai was enough to show their position. After the 10,000 Arts sect, the representatives of several high-rank sects appeared. When they passed by the registration counter, they also placed their bets. However, most of them bet on Zhang Zai. Before long, Zhang Zai's side had reached tens of millions of spirit stones. Moreover, he also had several middle-rank and high-rank spiritual treasures, which were of even higher value. On the other hand, Lu Li's side was only a fraction of the other sides. In this regard, the several disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect were happy to see this. Whether these cultivators who came to watch the fight were really optimistic about Zhang Zai or simply wanted to express their goodwill to the 10,000 Arts sect, in the end, they had created a quite favorable public opinion environment before the fight. In this regard, the elders of the Lingjian school turned a blind eye. Although the disciples were indignant, they could do nothing about it. It was too difficult for them to compete with the elders of the high-rank sects in terms of wealth. After a while, several elders and even sect leaders of middle-rank and low-rank sects came over. They also received permission from the Lingjian school to come and watch the fight. However, the reason why the Lingjian school let them go was to show that the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League were not separated from the grassroots masses. This group of people was full of curiosity and excitement. When they arrived at the registration counter, one of the sect leaders couldn't help but laugh. It seems like this fight is simply one-sided. Oh, the peerless genius of the 10,000 Arts sect, Zhang Zai, has a thunderous reputation. However, that Lu Li's reputation isn't that great. Of course, there's a gap in strength between the second and third of the 5 uniques. Not to mention Zhang Zai is the lead disciple, but Lu Li is not. However, the odds of these two people are almost the same. I guess this is the bet opened by the people of the Lingjian school? So, of course they would favor their own people. In my opinion, this is just a slap to the face, simply giving away money. I don't know if the several Taoist friends are interested in picking up some money? Haha, we're not as rich as sect leader Chiu, but it's not a problem to take out several 100,000 spirit stones to support the fight. Several people talked and laughed, and amidst the laughter, they managed to gather several million spirit stones and several magical treasures and elixirs, all of which were ready to bet on Zhang Zai. However, at this time, a disciple in red and white robe casually walked over. His hand was holding a few pieces of paper with rich immortal spirit energy, which he then put on the registration counter. I bet 50 million spirit stones on Lu Li. Chapter 163. When the words 50 million spirit stones appeared, There was dead silence around the registration desk as if time had stopped. After a while, a leader of a middle-rank sect stammered, How much did you say? The red and white cultivator turned his head and looked at him. 50 million spirit stones. What's wrong? You're just a disciple of Lingjian school, right? How can you have so many spirit stones? That elder said as he gradually recovered from his shock. 50 million spirit stones? Is it possible that your spirit sword sect has taken out its own treasury to place this bet? That's not very kind. You're the banker and you're betting yourself. TSK. Who told you it was our Lingjian school who opened the bet? If it was Lingjian school who opened the bet, are those elders of the high-rank sect stupid? Upon hearing this, even Hai Yunfan was a bit surprised. So this is not done by Spirit Sword Sect? Then there's only one place that allows everyone to place their bets without worrying about any problems? The red and white cultivator said with contempt. You can't even recognize the people of the mysterious Sky Mansion? When the cultivators heard this, they hurriedly looked at the staff behind the registration desk. The two of them had stiff and indifferent expressions, completely ignoring everything around them. They just silently checked the bets of the people who placed the bets, and then recorded it on the sign behind them. They thought they were disciples of Lingjian school, but it turned out that they were from the mysterious Sky Mansion. Wait, something's not right. You're a junior disciple and you're cultivation. I don't think you've reached the foundation establishment realm. Where did you get so many spirit stones? A leader of a low-rank sect gritted his teeth. 50 million spirit stones was not an insignificant amount of pocket money even for the top 5 sects of the Wanxian League, but for a leader of a low-rank sect like him, it was an astronomical figure. Although he was also at the nascent soul realm, his net worth was far less than that of a nascent soul realm cultivator from a high-rank sect. 50 million spirit stones was enough to buy him 10 times over. The red and white cultivator sneered, I'm not a civil servant of the Wanxian League. Do I have the obligation to explain the source of my wealth to you? If you're a pauper, just play the role of a pauper and obediently drool in envy, jealousy, and hate. The less you talk, the less you lose face. As they spoke, the staff of the mysterious Sky Mansion had already completed their inspection. One of them even revealed a smile for the first time. 50 million spirit stones. It has been confirmed. This is your proof, please keep it. Wang Lu took an exquisitely shaped jade slip and put it into his mustard seed bag. Then he ignored those small fries from the grassroots and returned to the side of the cloud platform. In the resting area of Lingjian School, one of the sect leaders still didn't believe it. He asked one of the staff members, that man just now really had 50 million spirit stones? I saw that he only handed over a few pieces of paper. What exactly are those things that are worth 50 million? Unfortunately, according to the relevant regulations of the mysterious Sky Mansion, you have no right to know any private information of the VIPs of the mysterious Sky Mansion. However, about that piece of paper, I can tell you that it's an asset mortgage recognized by the mysterious Sky Mansion, which is also a popularized activity recently. If your sect is interested in a mortgage loan, you can go to the nearest mysterious Sky Mansion office to apply for it. Recently there will be a discount. Mortgage what? The low-class sect leader was dumbfounded. A moment later he felt disheartened. No matter what it was, at least it was a treasure that was recognized by the mysterious Sky Mansion as worth 50 million spirit stones. And that young man was clearly just a small high-level chi cultivating stage cultivator. The world of these top-rank sects was too far away from him. The surrounding spirit sword sect disciples were also full of amazement. 50 million spirit stones. Senior brother Wang Lu really has 50 million spirit stones? Isn't it said that on the non-phase peak, besides the pauper, there are only scoundrels? How could he suddenly become so rich? Yeah, if he's really rich, why would he run to the Misty Peak cafeteria every day? Even a certain woman in white who was hiding in the dark was also stunned. The wine gourd in her hand rolled to the ground, and the spirit wine gushed out. This bastard, he has such a huge amount of money, but he doesn't know to give it to your master for safekeeping? This is simply outrageous. In fact, Wang Lu's 50 million spirit stones, not only was it not a freely circulating cash, but it was also public money. He had mortgaged most of the assets and even human resources of the Wisdom sect, and then put it all on the line. The value of this 50 million bet was not fake, but compared to those Yuanying and deity stage elders of the big sects who directly put out their cash and magical treasures, there was still a world of difference in their net worth. However, considering that his cultivation time was short, it was already unimaginable that he could accumulate this kind of terrifying net worth. The nearby Hai Yun fan shook his head with a wry smile. In the past few years he had also used the mysterious Sky Mansion to make several successful investments, so he had a small net worth. When it came to wealth, even his big brother was not as rich as him. However, compared to brother Wang's 50 million, it was not even worth mentioning. Moreover, what really made Hai Yun fan feel the pressure was the confidence behind Wang Lu's 50 million bet. This was not the opening of the Lingjian school. If he lost this 50 million, it would be like throwing away a stone, even if he was a distinguished guest of the mysterious Sky Mansion. No matter how heaven-defying Wang Lu was, it was impossible for him to not take this 50 million spirit stones seriously. Since he dared to bet, he naturally had the confidence to win. And Wang Lu's vision had always been extremely accurate. When Hai Yun fan returned to the rest area, sure enough, the complexion of his several senior brothers and sisters was somewhat strange. Hai Yun fan smiled bitterly in his heart. Sure enough, this kind of thing could not be hidden at all. Outside the rest area, the matter of the 50 million spirit stones had already been hyped up. And when they learned that Wang Lu's 50 million bet was certain to win, their mood began to become serious. Even the leading elders frowned and had some ideas in their hearts. What was worse was that the big brother, who was meditating with his eyes closed, also seemed to be shaken. Wang Lu's 50 million was really too much pressure. Hai Yun fan sighed in his heart. He had to applaud Wang Lu's move. It was still a psychological attack, still so simple and direct, even a bit crude, but it still had an effect. From the beginning of the fight to the present, Wang Lu had been using this trick, and it had always been successful. He was worthy of being a professional adventurer. However, this was the end of it. With a calm confidence, Hai Yun fan softly said, "Elders, senior brothers and sisters, I think there's actually nothing to worry about." Zhan Zai, who was meditating with his eyes closed, gently opened his eyes. The other people also directly looked at him. Hai Yun fan seriously said, "The outcome of the battle only depends on the strength of the two sides. Even if the Lingjian school used many means outside the field and took out hundreds of millions of spirit stones to bet, so what? Could it make the big brother weaker or Luli stronger? Not to mention even the mysterious Sky Mansion thinks that the big brother has a higher chance of winning. Wang Lu is nothing more than sensationalism to sway people's hearts. The reason he showed this kind of skill before the start of the competition is to make us doubt. Psychological attack, he only has this one trick, nothing to be afraid of." Well said. After a cheer, Zhan Zai was no longer confused. He stood up, and an invisible ripple of magical power spread out, causing Hai Yun fan and the others to feel slightly numb. This was clearly the manifestation of the lightning body being pushed to the extreme. Although Zhan Zai's body didn't release even the slightest lightning arc, the 8th layer of the lightning body had already been quietly launched. Although this day of seclusion could not cause his cultivation to increase explosively and reach another level, it allowed Zhan Zai to fully control the magic power he already had, and he could use the violent power of thunder as if it was a spring breeze and rain. Amazing. With this kind of control, he's basically invincible in the foundation establishment stage. Zhao Jiangyuan was both envious and excited. Lu Qingkai also said, "I have fought against Lu Li, so I know her ability. She's definitely not Big Brother's opponent." That's right. Although Lu Li's brilliant sword heart is powerful, how could Big Brother be inferior to her? Yi Feifei's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of obsession. Hai Yun fan and Zhan Zai took a deep look at each other. "Big Brother, I look forward to your victory. Rest assured." When he turned his head, Hai Yun fan actually showed a deep worry. Even if it was a psychological attack, Wang Lu's 50 million spirit stones were real money, not just used to scare people. Although his big brother was powerful, he had also deeply experienced the magical side of Wang Lu. If he had to put them on the two ends of the scale to compare. While Hai Yunfan's mind was heavy, Zhan Zai had already stood on the stage, quietly waiting for his opponent to appear. Before long, Lu Li also slowly walked onto the stage. The girl was still wearing a gorgeous dress, and her hand was gently holding a fiery red light-long sword. Her pretty face still carried that iconic smile, innocent and unaffected, just like the spring scenery. However, the moment she stood still on the cloud platform, Zhan Zai's whole body trembled. He felt an astonishing sword intent coming at him head-on, as if it wanted to pierce through him. His immortal heart that was refined by the 5 Thunder Sutra almost couldn't suppress his primordial spirit. Was this the brilliant sword heart? No wonder it was recorded as an immortal-level divine skill by the sect. He obviously had an advantage in magical power level and primordial spirit cultivation base, but he almost couldn't withstand her sword intent. That unparalleled sharpness and piercing ability had gone far beyond the scope of Foundation establishment stage. This was a truly evenly matched opponent. Moreover, with this pure sword intent, Zhang Zai didn't think that the opponent's mental defect would affect her combat effectiveness. Although they haven't really fought yet, from her clear eyes, Zhang Zai could see the pure fighting intent, like a mirror that reflected his own eyes. Lu Li's situation was exactly the same as his own. After a day of closed-door training, she had no distractions. Once the fight started, any external noise could not possibly affect her. The only thing that could decide the outcome was strength. However, in front of that all-conquering sharp sword intent, what kind of strength did he need to show in order to win? While he was thinking, the referee elder has announced the start of the fight. Almost at the same time, Lu Li's fiery sword had run through the opponent. However, at the same time, dozens of talismans around Zhang Zai were ignited. Virtual body, flying sword, body burning. All kinds of effects came out at the same time, which was exactly the same as Lu Qinsai's response that day. It perfectly withstood the true fire and sword intent of the fiery sword. The next moment, Lu Li's weak water sword reappeared like the old scene, quietly arriving like a flying immortal from outer space. However, this sword strike could not replicate the victory of the previous fight. The weak water sword was blocked by a gloomy sword for a moment, which only managed to pierce through an afterimage. Zhang Zai's figure was like the wind. Faster than the opponent's sword strike, he soared into the air. Zhao Jiangyuan's limitless sword and Yi Feifei's instantaneous gale were perfectly reproduced. The two swords missed their target, so Lu Li's sword momentum couldn't help but pause. A patch of gray mist came right over his head. Southern Heaven Witchcraft, Biochemical Death. Lu Li possessed the magical method of brilliant sword heart, so her physique was untainted by even a speck of dust. However, under this infamous witchcraft curse, she became a bit slower. Thereupon, the eighth layer of lightning body, Thunder Palm, came right at her. Lu Li's agile footwork was no longer there, so she had to raise her sword to meet it head-on. She sent out a ball of lightning and fire, but her figure slightly swayed. She had already suffered an internal injury. Chapter 164. The fight on the Cloud Tread rooftop made it difficult for many onlookers to breathe. The situation of the fight changed so fast that it was too much for people to take in. What was even more amazing was that, in just a few blinks of an eye, Zhang Zai had already used several of his junior brothers and sisters' unique skills. Lu Qinsai's Spirit Talisman technique, Zhao Jiangyuan's Limitless Sword, Yi Feifei's Royal Sky technique, as well as his own Thunder Body, all of which were used freely as if they were at his fingertips. In the astonished eyes of the crowd, several elders and sect leaders from other sects clenched their fists. This was the real card of the eldest brother of the 10,000 Arts sect. 10,000 Methods Comprehension. This was the legendary immortal level method. The cultivator could comprehend all the methods in the world, and all kinds of unique skills were at their fingertips. It was the means of a real immortal. Even the 10,000 Arts sect, one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, who could cultivate it were very rare. Unexpectedly, this Zhang Zai, who was only at the Foundation establishment stage, actually managed to cultivate 10,000 methods comprehension. Such a heaven-defying genius was rarely seen in the entire immortal cultivation world for thousands of years. In contrast, the so-called geniuses of their own sect, which they had high hopes for, suddenly seemed dull. They originally thought that with the painstaking efforts of their sect, they might be close to the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League. However, what they saw today was simply disheartening. With such a genius leading them, who could shake their position as one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League? Under the brilliant light of 10,000 methods comprehension, Lu Li's brilliant sword heart suddenly became dim. Although it was just a round of fight, but, in the face of an opponent with magical power, primordial spirit strength, and the mastery of 10,000 methods comprehension, unless she was possessed by a true immortal, it was impossible for her to have any chance of winning. In particular, Zhang Zai had thoroughly analyzed the opponent's proudest double swords, and thus had a way to restrain the fiery sword and the weak water sword. Lu Li was indeed formidable. Unfortunately, she encountered an even more formidable opponent. No wonder the odds of the mysterious Sky Mansion are more inclined to Zhang Zai. With this 10,000 methods comprehension, among the people of the same generation, I'm afraid only a few could match him. Perhaps even Xingjing sect's Zhonghua is slightly inferior. Not necessarily. Who dares to say that Xingjing sect has revealed all their cards? Before witnessing it with our own eyes today, we never thought that Zhang Zai would be able to cultivate the 10,000 methods comprehension. Since 17 years ago, geniuses have emerged endlessly in the immortal cultivation world. We can't look at things with our old eyes anymore. The few grand cultivators from high-rank sects were calm and collected. Over the past 17 years, there had been many talented cultivators in the immortal cultivation world, and they all had a certain amount of resources in their hands. Moreover, speaking of which, geniuses, only geniuses who had matured were frightening. No matter how talented a foundation establishment cultivator was, they still couldn't enter the eyes of a nascent soul or deity transformation cultivator. But no matter what, I'm afraid the outcome of this round has already been decided. A certain brat who gambled so much is probably going to suffer a great loss. However, just as everyone was making their judgment on the outcome of this battle, they heard a burst of light laughter from the cloud platform. Lu Li's body slightly swayed. Blood even flowed out from the corner of her mouth, but her face was filled with an extremely joyful smile. It was the joy of meeting one's match. Just as people were curious about how Lu Li would contend against the 10,000 methods comprehension in a situation where both of her swords were sealed, the girl spread out her hands, and from her sleeves flew out 12 flying swords hovered around her body. Being watched by countless pairs of horrified eyes, Lu Li's smile became more and more cheerful, as if she was asking a simple question. Who said that Lu Li would use 2 swords? The 12 flying swords, each carrying a different attribute of immortal spirit aura, turned into 12 rainbow lights and soared into the sky. Who said that Lu Li could only ride her sword in close combat? The power of any one of the 12 flying rainbows was comparable to Yi Feifei's red jade heavenly fire. When the 12 of them merged into one, the power was far superior. Even some of the gold core elders of the lower rank sects were frightened. The explosive power of the brilliant sword heart was pushed to the extreme in an instant. However, Zhang Zai didn't waver in the slightest. The 8th level of the lightning battle physique allowed him to instantly transform into a ball of lightning, and then a slender and tough lightning whip swiftly lashed out in an attempt to bind the 12 rays of light. How sharp was the brilliant sword heart! The 12 flying swords flashed and dispersed the long whip extended by the thunder body, but the scattered thunder power also disrupted the sword momentum. The lightning power innately had the ability to control the flying swords that were made of metal essence. Zhang Zai made full use of this to buy himself a negligible amount of time. Although the time was short, the lightning body and lightning body's natural lightning speed allowed him to take this opportunity to get away from the threatening range of the flying swords. People couldn't compete with flying swords in terms of speed. Even if the lightning body and the lightning body were superimposed, it was impossible for them to be faster than the flying swords. However, as long as he took advantage of the moment when the 12 flying swords paused to slightly open up the distance, he had too many means to deal with this kind of direct attack. As long as he could buy himself a little bit of time, he didn't need to entangle himself with these 12 flying swords. The other side had released all the flying swords, but they forgot that no matter how strong the flying swords were, they still had a weakness: their master. As long as he could destroy Lu Li's body with the annihilation thunder, what would be the use of these 12 swords of brilliant sword heart? In his jade mansion, the immortal heart that could suppress the 5 thunders crazily rotated. When he was fighting with all his strength, Zhang Zai had never been able to stay calm. To suppress the 5 thunders, the method of forgetting emotion would never be useful. Only a fiercer temperament could control the thunder. However, no matter how extreme the intensity was, it didn't make him completely crazy. On the contrary, his calculation would be faster and more accurate. The various knowledge that he learned in the 10,000 Arts sect would lead him to obtain the greatest result with the least amount of power, and to exchange the greatest power for the absolute victory. However, just as he had deduced more than 300 changes and was ready to launch the lightning body, the scattered rainbow light in the air suddenly converged into one. The light from the 9 flying swords converged into a rainbow. Lu Li, who was wearing a 7-colored dress, faced Zhang Zai's astonished gaze, holding a flying sword in each of her hands, and then swung it head-on. In his field of vision, the flying swords cut off that brilliant smiling face, and the unparalleled sword chi came head-on, which couldn't be avoided or blocked. The complex model that was constructed in his mind collapsed. In any case, Zhang Zai didn't expect that Lu Li's sword cultivation base had already reached the realm of one with the sword. However, the result of his calculation was too precise. Once the calculation was wrong, then facing the sword chi stimulated by brilliant sword heart, Zhang Zai didn't show any weakness. Dozens of talismans that he had prepared for a long time as his trump card were suddenly ignited, which turned into a huge and temporary force that poured into his jade mansion. His lightning body suddenly burst out with unprecedented light. "Let's die together." On the cloud-tread rooftop, an astonishing explosion swept the audience. The clouds fiercely rolled as if they were ravaged by a huge force. Under the cover of sound and light, the roaring magical power left a tragic mark on the thick layer of clouds. The core of the clouds was even directly pierced through with numerous holes. Under the platform, people have been shocked speechless by this terrifying fight. From the beginning to the end of the fight between Lu Li and Zhan Zai, only a few breaths of time had passed, yet the power, skill and wisdom that they displayed were far beyond imagination. People thought that the 10,000 methods comprehension was already an unexpected surprise today. However, when Lu Li successively summoned out 12 flying swords, and even used them one with the sword divine skill, even the 10,000 methods comprehension, this immortal level technique, was overshadowed. How powerful was this naive and unaffected cultivator girl, who was even sighed and called a fool by many people? How could a mere Lingzhen school, the last of the 5 uniques, cultivate such a powerful cultivator? Although at present she was just a low-level foundation establishment cultivator just starting on the path of immortal cultivation, but the cultivators present asked themselves if their cultivation base was limited to foundation establishment. No, even if it was shoot on stage, what was the chance of winning? He was a monster through and through. When the aftermath of the fight on the cloud-tread rooftop slowly settled down, the hearts of the audience also slowly fell down from the high place. It was really a wonderful match. However, the result was really interesting. At the last moment, Zhan Zai superimposed the Annihilation Thunder and Talisman technique, and the destructive power of the explosion has steadily reached the level of King Pill. Although he himself could not escape, Lu Li, who was quite close to him, was also a dead end. Of course, there were Yuanying and deity stage referees on duty, so no one would really die, but the corresponding judgment would not be wrong. Mutual destruction. This was a draw. While sighing at this result, many people also thought of one thing. Under the platform, the mysterious sky mansion was the banker. How would it be calculated? Although there was also a draw option, not many people actually bet on it. After all, in this kind of arena where they didn't need to worry about life and death, the cultivators' fight was more intense, so it was less likely to have a draw. Then, what would a certain local tycoon who gambled 50 million feel? Idiot. Facing the gradually gathered eyes, Wang Lu snorted in ridicule and then pointed at the platform. The outcome has been decided. On the rooftop, as the clouds gradually stabilized, a golden light appeared. In the middle of the golden light, Zhan Zai was quietly lying in midair, unconscious. This layer of golden light was the spell cast by the referee elder. Once there was a life-threatening danger, it would immediately be activated. For these young cultivators, it could be called as an absolute defense, saving their lives. However, the flash of golden light also meant the defeat of the fight. In their field of vision, there was only Zhan Zai's golden light. Lu Li was nowhere to be seen. Ah, there she is. On the edge of the cloud platform, Lu Li, who was dressed in a colorful dress, smiled. The girl who had retracted her sword intent appeared quite inconspicuous on the cloud platform. However, compared to the unconscious Zhan Zai, the still lively Lu Li simply shone brightly. How could this be? Under that terrifying annihilation thunder, how did Lu Li protect herself? Brilliant Sword Heart had never been known for defense. Of course, among the people present, the great cultivators with profound cultivation base had already seen through the trick, but they didn't say a word. However, the disciples with insufficient cultivation base couldn't figure out the reason behind it. That's why I said you guys are stupid. Can't you do addition and subtraction? 9 swords combined into 1, and then divided into 2 swords. What is 9 plus 2? How many flying swords did she summon? With this kind of brain, you still have the nerve to shout, "Kick the mathematics out of the Ting Cloud Hall?" With that, Wang Lu stood up and left the rest area. His face was unusually dignified. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.